The playoffs continue with 2 races down and a fight at the last great Coliseum, where tonight we welcome you to the cutoff race of the Galaxy Cup Series playoffs and the round of 16 live from the Bristol Motor Speedway with coverage on 3Y TV. Hello everybody, Kenneth Weno in the booth alongside Andre Granbush. As always, glad to have you join us. Andre, we are 2 races, and then they have gone by, and the only driver that has been in command has been Hicksonbaugh, but it's no playground this time around for any of these drivers, with elimination at stake after the checkered flag tonight.
If any race was a wild card, it would definitely be this one. Any race at Bristol is a spectacle. The track is short, the banks are high, the lap times are blazingly quick, and you are constantly in traffic. So even a dominant driver like Hicksonbaugh is going to have to keep his eyes peeled tonight, Ken.
It's going to be a fun one here at Bristol Motor Speedway, and of course the track so small here but provides such high stakes, especially with the playoffs in mind, especially as this is the last race of the round of 16, Andre. We've gone 2 races by, and this is the final race where we're going to see which drivers are going to be comfortable, which drivers are very close to the cut line, or at least awfully close to the cut line. And of course, there will be some drivers going into tonight with their backs against the walls. And it's going to be very, very interesting to see how that goes. And for 500 laps, we're going to be going here tonight, full distance around the Bristol Motor Speedway. Andre, lots of things to talk about, especially since this is the second short track in this first round. We had Richmond last week at a 0.75 mile racetrack. We're down to a 0.53, just about a half mile around this racetrack. And Andre, with a trip to Richmond now over with, what's the real difference, or the adaptation, I should say, that the drivers will have to make tonight as opposed to what we saw at Richmond last week?
Well, Richmond, it's a short track, but it almost drives like a slightly smaller mile and a half in that you get off the throttle, you let it roll, and then you get back on it a little while after that. There's a lot of off-throttle time. Here at Bristol, you have so much grip, and the banking's so high that you have a lot of on-throttle time. You barely blip that throttle getting in, set the car, and then you get right back on it. So it drives different from almost any other short track on the circuit. And additionally, this track is going to be, it's only going to be a field of 20 cars. So you're going to have a lot more open space in front of you, at least at the start of these runs, meaning you're going to have to hit your marks. You're not going to be able to rely on people getting stuck in traffic early on, and you're going to have to be consistent up until, if we get these long green flag runs, you get into some traffic, and that's a whole nother story in and of itself.
And it's always a conversation around Bristol Motor Speedway, just how tough it is to get around this track. And you just mentioned, Andre, with the high banking around this racetrack, you really got to pick and choose your lanes. And really, we've seen, at least from practice right now, we're seeing the high line seem to work in. Might see the bottom grooves start to file in as soon as we get closer to the race time. We get through maybe the long green flag runs, like you mentioned. Lots of challenges to go by, and of course lap traffic, always hard to get around any sort of traffic, even if you're on the lead lap. And getting around anybody is a challenge here at Bristol, always something for these drivers to face. And of course, it is a battle all around the racetrack. That's why it's called the last great Coliseum. But Andre, now we've got this round in, and we got to Richmond, we got to Darlington, we're getting to this Bristol race, and a lot of different changes in terms of some of the drivers in here tonight. Most notably, Cameron Stone is back into the action after being suspended for 1 race, so he missed Richmond. He will be back in the competition here at Bristol Motor Speedway. But another thing, Andre, is that we have a shorter field, just like you mentioned, opposed from, let's say, the high 20s, maybe over 25 drivers. We're having just about 21 attending for tonight's race, and pretty much all but 5 are non-playoff drivers. Every driver are playoff drivers apart from 5 drivers. So in terms of the battles, in terms of drivers getting points, losing points, and trying to fight for position, you're going to see that all over tonight.
Absolutely, Ken. You know, here's the thing. Cameron Stone didn't initially think that he was going to be in a must-win situation coming into Bristol. He lost a lot of points at Richmond, but if the field was a little bit larger, he could realistically get away with a 5th place or 6th place finish and move on to the next round. But now, with only 20 cars in the field, most of them being playoff drivers except for 5, like you'd mentioned, there's not too many points that are going to be changing hands tonight. So if he wants to progress, he's pretty much in a must-win situation. And the same thing goes to his teammate, Cody Bird, who was also suspended for the exact same infraction. So they're teammates, and they're going to be battling it out for that win to try and progress. We know they have speed. We know they're fast drivers, but they've also had some pretty bad luck as of recently in the playoffs. So it's going to be a hard-fought battle for those guys tonight.
Definitely going to be a hard battle. Well, you see the pace truck lining up in front of the entire field, and we'll get to your starting grid as they line up on the pit road, starting with the pole sitter. Driver who was suspended last week has come back with a vengeance. Cameron Stone with a 14.313 starts on the pole. Rich Pachuco will follow along in second. 2 Ford Mustangs on the front row. We'll look back to row number 2. Jonathan Delaney starts third. Alex Princeton will start fourth in the second row. Preston McRae and Kevin Steele will round out row number 3. The 53 and the 44 together there. And then right behind them is Joseph Lester in the 9 car after his heartbreaking run at Richmond. Right alongside him, Christopher Hallman in the 17. Finalizing row number 5 in the top 10 will be Wayne Grassy in the 7 and the 3 of Brian Mabry.
And looking back past them, outside of the top 10, we've got Zach Probst and Cameron Caldwell. Both of these drivers showed a lot of speed last week, but were unfortunately caught up in late race incidents. Back to row 8 now. Looking at those guys, we've got Josh Coppernall and Randy Drumhiller in the 42 and the 30 respectively. Further back from them, up in row 9, we've got the returning Cody Bird after his absence at Richmond, and Jack Durham behind him. Back to row 10 now, we got Dave Fugue Jr. and Bryson Hicksonbaugh. Starting further back in the field, that's not a very common sight to see, but nonetheless, he's going to be rounding out the field there in 21st.
So 21 drivers in this field here. Bristol Motor Speedway going to have a long run to the checkered flag at 500 laps. We run the full distance as the NASCAR Cup Series do in real life. On the sim, we replicate that in the same way. So going to be a long one. You see the pace truck slowly getting to the rest down to the front straightaway, and we'll take the green flag. Oh, so short around this racetrack. Half a mile, just about 15 seconds going around this racetrack. You could blink and you're already completed a lap around this fastest half-mile oval. So pace truck will come off, and the field will be in the hands of Cameron Stone and Rich Pachuco. The 2 Ford Mustangs will hit the gas pedal. We are green for the last great Coliseum in the Galaxy Cup Series playoffs.
An absolute calamity has struck at the very beginning of the race. It would appear that John Delaney spun his tires on that restart, shooting his car towards that outside retaining barrier, and it would appear there were a few other drivers collected. Let's take a look at the replay, Ken.
And very quickly, that just happened. You see Delaney just spinning the tires. It just gets up into Alex Princeton there in the 5. Brian Mabry seemed to be an innocent bystander in that one. He also had a piece of that as well. Here's an extra look. This is literally just coming straight to the front straightaway on the green flag. And right there, just kicks it off and sends the 6 car into the wall. And that's enough to bring the yellow. Hard damage to that 6 car, and have to get that repaired. Still on the racetrack, though, at the moment. Here's a look at Brian Mabry's on board. This is obviously coming to the green flag, and at this point, when the field is just stacked together, you just got to slam on the brakes, and just had a piece of that. Really did not really have any choice.
I tell you, Mabry didn't really slow down much for that, but I don't think anybody can blame him. I don't think you expect that to happen right out the gate at the start of these races. So, man, what a tough break early on. We see the 5 car making his way down pit road, heavy front-end damage, a little bit of front-end damage to that 3, but mostly looking like it's going to be all right. John Delaney has yet to come down pit road. The rear end of that car has been pretty much torn off completely. We can see the fuel cell up underneath the deck lid, and that's never a good sign. So these guys are going to stack them back up and hopefully have a better restart here.
Yeah, surprising that the other 2 drivers that were involved in this incident, obviously most notably Alex Princeton and Brian Mabry, those drivers went down pit road, but Delaney did not, and he had the most damage out of everybody in that incident since he was the one pretty much that started the entire thing. So surprised he's not going down pit road, maybe just trying to hang on to his machine for the most part, at least early in this race. And we've mentioned this so many times, Andre, and over the course of these broadcasts over the past couple of weeks, we talked about making mistakes, and especially when you're a playoff driver, with the high stakes that you have, with the points you can lose, the points you can gain, and obviously now that you just mentioned at the top of the broadcast before we just got the green flag here and the yellow flag right after, the lesser car count tonight, 21, as opposed to the larger fields that we've had at the previous couple of races, that also could play a factor. So maybe Delaney is just trying to stick this out early, and Andre, like we talked about, mistakes, you rather make them early than do them late in the race. I think now it just might be a key spot to just try to get those issues fixed.
Absolutely. And, looking at that number 6, most of his damage is rear end damage, which at a track like this isn't quite as detrimental as you might think. At a track like Bristol, it's front end damage you want to look at. You want to make sure that the air is going over the front of your car properly, that your front tires have that grip to rotate you through the corner. If your rear end gets a little bit torn up, but the spoiler remains intact, as we see on that 6 car of Delaney, it's not going to be too big of a deal. Remember, top speed is not a factor here. It is all about corner speed. And in some cases, sometimes that little bit of damage can actually increase your rotation and give you a little bit of a drive in the corner. So maybe that's what Delaney's hoping for tonight.
Alex Princeton will be the first driver caught 1 lap down after hitting pit road. Delaney is just about 46 seconds back, but you just saw him and a couple other drivers in front. They have made their way around. They're going to take the trip back around turn 2 and make their way to the back of the field before we get this green flag. We've got the 1 to green signal, and just as quickly as you got the 1 to green signal, we're already sipping into 3 and 4. So we're already going to get the green flag back on lap number 7. And a quick yellow hopefully could lead to a longer green flag run this time by Stone and Petrucco still at the head of this field. And the 57 with a large jump. We are back to the green flag on lap 7 here at Bristol.
A little bit of contact behind them. Somebody spun his tires. I wasn't able to catch exactly who it was, but it caused a huge checkup in the field. So a little bit of a separation now between the leader and pretty much everybody behind him. We got a replay here. We have identified what happened. Let's go ahead and take a look at it. This is the initial restart. And it was Dan Fields, it would appear, that got involved in that. So a tough start there. Now we got a better view of it. Let's check it out, Ken.
And again, another driver with issues on a restart. This is coming back to the restart lap 7. We just got over this, and not really a great start for that 66. Kind of held up Cameron Caldwell there at the bottom. I believe that was also Christopher Hammond alongside. Here's an extra look now. Zach Probst now getting back to the inside. Still in this group, though. Zach Probst and Cameron Caldwell now. Coppernall very close to the inside, but he's going to make that stick. And this is fighting for the top 10 spot. Fields will fall all the way down to just about 14th place as Mabry gets by.
It's been tough early on, but you got to remember this track's going to get more rubbered up the more we race on it. So hopefully the grip levels go up and these guys' setups start to come in. It seems like a lot of these guys were kind of anticipating the track to be more grippy than it has been. Right now we're looking at a battle between the 9 machine and the 47, nearly going 3 wide. The 47 thought better of it. He let off the throttle there. Definitely a good call. But they are duking it out side by side. And I got to say, Ken, I'm surprised by how well the 9 car, Joseph Lester, is holding his own on that bottom lane. We expected the top line to be faster, as you mentioned, pre-race. But he's actually carrying quite a bit of speed down there. Now, obviously, the top line's going to get that run out. But so far, early on, the bottom proving to be a little bit stronger than expected.
You're on board with the 47 of Boisvert, who made his first start last week at Richmond, is already carrying the strong run from here on out, currently in 6th. Going to try to pounce on Preston McRae, who's right in front of him for the top 5. You can't just see that now. You see the drivers right behind him fighting for spots. Christopher Hammond, Joseph Lester, who now looks to the outside. He takes back a P number 7 away from the 17. There goes the 64. Cameron Caldwell also as well. Zach Probst in this mix. And Hammond is awfully slow here on the racetrack. I'm not sure there might have been an issue there, or he's just very off pace. He also has damage on the race car.
Yeah, not sure what's going on there. I do see that damage on the right rear. That tells me he probably got a love tap from somebody, but we got a replay. It would appear we've identified exactly what went down with this 17 machine. Or nope, no replay. We apologize. So a little bit of a mystery as to what's going on with the 17. Definitely made some contact, but the question is with who? And was he trying to make it down pit road before eventually just giving up on that? Because he was way off base, like you had mentioned. So definitely interesting happenings as we now catch up with our leader. We haven't seen him since the start of that restart there. Almost a straightaway lead over second place. He is up to about a 1.5 second lead over Rich Petrucco. And behind him, Petrucco's starting to catch some heat from that 44, Kevin Consistency Steele.
And you figure the Hammond situation might just be from that first initial restart with that incident with Delaney. Possibly could have gotten a piece from there. Remember, everyone was checking up there, so Hammond could have been the victim of just being caught in a sandwich. Just somebody checking up and then somebody from the rear not slowing down enough, and they can make contact with the rear of his race car. So that could have been the situation with the 17. We're going to try to monitor that the best way we can. He is way off pace and really falling to the clutches of every driver on the racetrack right now. There's Delaney getting by. with the damage from the initial restart. There's Cameron Caldwell. Bryson Hicksonball also fairly far back in this field. He started all the way back in 21st, started all the way at the rear of this field. And Andre, I think if you're one of the if you're especially Hicksonball in this case, you've already won 2 races. You know you're locked in to the next round, in the round of 12. You really don't want to take any risks here. You just kind of want to play it easy, especially at a track where maybe he was expecting a lot more chaos.
Right. You know, like you mentioned, he's got those 2 wins. There's no point in interfering with anybody else's playoff battle. He knows he's progressing. These other guys are fighting for points, fighting for that bubble position to move on. So I could see why he probably would just go ahead and start towards the back of the pack and not necessarily ride around, but not be as aggressive and not push as hard as he has in these last 2 races. Just let these guys battle it out and sort it out amongst themselves. We're on board now with Grassy, that 7 machine. He is side by side with the number 3 machine. That is Brian Mabry. And again, that top line just appears to get that huge run out of the corners. Both of these drivers catching up to that 44 of Kevin Steele.
And Wayne Grassy continuing to fall into 4th. The 3 of Mabry is currently sitting 7 laps down all the way at the rear of this field in 20th. So he's got the fresh tires. He went down pit road to get the damage fixed from that initial incident. So that's helping him out in this run, at least in an attempt to get his laps back and try to get back to the lead lap and gain some points along the way. He is also a playoff driver that is in need of some of the points. So it would be great if he could get all the way back to the lead lap. And the 27 of Petrucco, you were just looking on board with the 3 of Mabry. And as soon as that was happening, the 27 just got loose. Now Mabry's in the wall, going to try and keep it off of every other driver to the bottom. He's all clear, going to head down to the apron. We'll take a replay. This was right behind the 2nd place driver in Petrucco, just entering the corner with a head of steam. I believe might have just unsettled the car there, just trying to get to the banking in the corners. And then the 3, maybe help from Kevin Steele in the 44, just trying to get by, and then contact between him and the 3. And then the 3 goes up into the outside wall. He is back down pit road. So insult to injury early for that 3 machine.
Talk about a bad night going to worse there, Ken. This 3 car cannot catch a break. 2 incidents very early on. I believe our first stage break is going to be at lap 125. So, we got a ways to go in this stage yet. And already that, he's kind of displaying another thing that these drivers have to plan around and work around at these short tracks. Is it's not like a big track like Pocono or Daytona where you can have an issue and bring it down the pits and maybe come out 1 lap down, if you're even a lap down at all. If you have to come down pit road here, you're going down 6, 7 laps. I mean, these guys are passing you every 14 seconds, and it takes longer than that just to make it to your pit stall. So really, this is one of those tracks that if you have an issue, the chances of recovery, the chances of getting enough lucky dogs to get back on the lead lap is really minimal. So you have to be on your game all night long. And unfortunately, the incidents have just grasped a lot of these drivers and really ruined their nights early on. So you hate to see it. But right now, you're looking at the 17 machine. He's gone a lap down to Cameron Stone as the 44. Now on the high side, trying to get around him as well, navigating this lap traffic. 44 is still not necessarily letting Petrucco go. The gap has remained pretty much the same the last few laps, give or take a few tenths. But Kevin Steele really impressing tonight with the run that he's had running in that podium position so far. You can see these lap time comparisons. Last time around for Rich Petrucco was 15.666, and for Kevin Steele it was a 15.731. So very close lap times, and definitely going to be a battle. Oh, a little bit of a bobble from the 27, and the caution's out, Ken.
Yellow out on the racetrack. It's the 3rd one, I'd say. No, actually the 2nd one of the night. So we're going to look, that's Daniel Fields in the 66. Was just about to mention him since he was the first driver 1 lap down, but that is not the case anymore. Take that place to Jack Durham, who's now 1 lap down. But very interesting situation for the 66 there. You see him go around off the corner. Here's an extra look. It didn't look like he tapped the wall. This is just coming off the corner. And then I believe the car just got up under him and just gets loose, trying to put it in the throttle. Just loose there, and then just backing it down for the wall and gets contact with the wall, and then it just comes to a complete stop. He just got down pit road, so he's going to get to his stall, going to try to get the damage fixed, and a 2nd yellow is brought out here on lap number 30, I'd say 35, 39 actually, just a couple laps down. Fields is on his 35th lap, coming to 36. as soon as he was going down to the pit road. But speaking of pit road, we've got all the leaders down. Cameron Stone will lead the rest of the field down. Petrucco, Steele, Grassi, and the rest of these guys, as they're all going to opt for possibly 4 tires and fuel.
Absolutely. We've seen these guys struggle with the handling, and it does not surprise me that these guys are going to come down and get 4 fresh Goodyears, get as much grip out of these cars as possible, because they look slick even on fresh tires. So I can't imagine how evil these things are going to get once those tires wear down. And, eventually later in the race, maybe these drivers aren't going to be able to catch this break where they can get these cautions and come down and get fresh tires. So if we get a long green flag run and they're handling these tires after they've worn down that much, it's going to be definitely interesting to watch. Cameron Stone nearly going through his pit stall, stopping just in time, now getting that car serviced and ready to go. But it's Rich Petrucco who's going to beat him off pit road, possibly with a 2-tire stop.
Petrucco gets ahead of steam. He comes out first, and you gotta mention that possibly his struggles, especially with that loose race car that we saw in his little slip up, that moment there where he got loose coming into the corner, just trying to get those adjustments in, and he comes out of pit road first. Cameron Stone will follow through to second, and I believe it has remained fairly stable between third on back. You see Jack Durham going down pit road. He was calculated as 4th. Kevin Steele will come out into 3rd. Wayne Grassi, Preston McRae, Joseph Lester in this group as well. Delaney, who's, I believe, just getting out of pit road at the moment. So we got a couple drivers just shifting positions right now, but how about that pit stop for Rich Petrucco? But actually, as soon as I say that, he goes back down pit road, so maybe he just didn't top off enough. He's going to go back down and lose all those spots.
I was going to mention there, Ken, I heard over the radio that it would appear that Petrucco accidentally only put left side tires on the car that stop, which you could get away with a 2-tire stop, but those 2 tires better be right sides. And unfortunately for him, he clicked the wrong box, brought it into the pits, and got the tires that really weren't going to help him too much. So he's making his way back down pit road, and he is going to get the tires that he actually intended to get, but now he's possibly going to go a lap down as a result. So absolutely disastrous mistake for that 27 machine. The 63 also coming down pit road once more. Not exactly sure what the situation is with him. Possibly a similar boat. But, man, what a crazy development. I don't think either of us saw that one coming, Ken.
No, and remarkably, with that pit stop, it was just so quick. I was probably applauding how quick that pit stop was, and how fast the pit crew was, but it seemed as though it just wasn't the right call that he made going back. So I don't believe he will go a lap down. Luckily, he won't. He'll fall back through the tail end of the lead lap, but he will not be put under a lap down. So that's good news for him. But we're back under green, and a phenomenal start for Cameron Stone. Really left everybody else in the dust. Cody Bird, Kevin Steele were really struggling to get back on that restart. Kevin Steele, Wayne Grassi, the 47 of Boyvert, and also I believe Josh Coppernall stuck down the bottom. They're going to move to the high side, but look at that freight train up top.
The top line coming in strong, 53 machine, getting that run out of the corner. I'm noticing the 162 is actually getting a better run than the 53. So the thing is, he's having to check up. Obviously, he's got the cars in front of him. If he could get in clean air, he might have something for Cody Bird. Now, looking further back in the pack, the 9 car appears to have scraped the wall, gathered it up without causing too much incident, but a lot of action already all around the track.
Yeah, this was the replay. Lester just got loose off the corner in the middle of all those drivers in the pack, and then tried to overcorrect it, got saved by the wall. In turn, it created some right side damage for that 9 car, but he is still holding strong. He fell back, I believe, just 2 spots. Ever since he tagged that outside wall, he is now behind in this line with Wayne Grassi, Kevin Steele, right behind him, the 47 of Boisvert. And going back to Joseph Lester, just a heartbreaking run at Richmond last week, and we were talking about this, Andre, when he was just in the lead, had a really promising run at that point, and then coming to the restart just about midway through the race, and got the apron going to the restart, and then just went around, and there was no yellow. I really did not go better from there, and I really had a disastrous run. The Lester really trying to pick up from that. But at the moment now, Andre, even though it's early in this night, I'm seeing a lot of drivers with loose race cars. We're seeing a lot of drivers just trying to keep themselves straight and just trying to wheel them back off forward, because they are getting really loose in a lot of these corners and really trying to keep themselves from spinning around. I saw a couple of drivers have some moments where they got loose. Obviously, we saw Daniel Fields being a victim of that. Joseph Lester we just saw, but lots of drivers, I think, struggling with their race cars in the grip.
Right. It's almost like they got caught off guard, which you don't see very often in this league. it's almost like they set these cars up with a lot more grip on the track in mind. So they're definitely adapting to it and trying to learn the feel of these cars so they can get a little bit more consistency. I'm really surprised by Cody Bird up here running P2 after getting a lot of track position with that last stop. We're on board right now with the 162 machine. But yeah, the 64 machine, he was closing the gap to Cameron Stone a little bit lap by lap. Now it seems like it evened out, so possibly a difference in tires there, Ken.
Yeah, just about the same gap between the 57 of Stone and Petrucco earlier in this race. Just about the same gap between Stone and Cody Bird at the moment. Cody Bird was slowly gaining, and you can definitely see the back bumper of that 57 at the moment. And especially the track just short like this, you can really see all the cars on the racetrack. But he's fairly close, so just about a second now. We really haven't seen anybody challenge Stone at the moment. Just looking at also some drivers, and really everybody's single file at the moment. I think for right now, Andre, just key of this race, get to lap 125 and possibly get those fresh tires, go down pit road if we get a longer green flag run. And you're taking a look at some of these drivers in a train, most of them close to each other. William Voivert in the 47 just about mentioned that his first start at Richmond last week had a phenomenal run with him and Adam Benefield. Those two drivers were rookies in that race. And coming into his second race, I think the short tracks are really treating him well, Andre. Certainly sitting well and really performing with a clean race car at the moment. He's sitting sixth right now, but he can do much better.
Right, I think Boiver actually has some road racing experience on this simulator, and a lot of people say short tracks do race a little bit like road courses. You have to have that same sort of finesse and throttle control to keep that car exactly where you want it. So short tracks are definitely going to help him out quite a bit, and he is shown to be very strong. Richmond, getting that podium finishing position in his rookie debut, very impressive. Right now, looking at the battle between Joseph Lester and Cameron Caldwell, this is a battle that I think we've seen a few times. Seems like these guys can't get away from each other, but they were close to each other in Richmond. They had a few good battles. On board now with the 12 as he is closing in on that 9, getting a huge run down the straightaway, and now peaking low, Ken.
And you're seeing some of the driving styles that these drivers are utilizing, at least at a track like this. Some drivers are sticking up high. They seem to click towards the wall. You're seeing drivers like the 47 just really staying high as Joseph Lester got really snappy there off the corner. You were looking at the onboard, and you're still looking at the in-car cam with Cameron Caldwell. And he really just had a front seat view of that 9 almost going around, and now going to try to look to the quarter panel. He has yet to be successful, but back to what I was saying, Andre, the driving styles at a track like this, I just saw Joseph Lester hit that high groove, and as soon as he starts to get to the middle of the corner, starts to swing the car back down and get as much throttle as he can, going back to the straightaways, the back straightaway and the front straightaway. And it really has not worked at the moment for the 9 because he has been the result of him being snappy loose. And now we're seeing side by side between him and Caldwell, I think pretty even at the moment.
Even indeed, the lap times between pretty much the whole field, you're not seeing too much separation, really. I mean, you're looking at from first all the way back to sixth, it's only 4 seconds of separation. And we've been green for, I think, the longest we've been green so far this race. So 25 laps, 4 seconds of separation. These lap times are pretty competitive, and I think, honestly, that closeness comes from how hard these cars are to drive tonight. They seem to be a bit of a handful, and when that's the case, it puts everybody on equal footing. So right now, tagging along with this 30 car as he is homing in on the back of that 04 Dave Fugue, back in P11 and P12 respectively. So catching back up with Kevin Steele, taking a look at some lap times comparisons as we go on board. Last time around for Preston McRae, it was a 15.456 to a 15.514 for Kevin Steele. So incredibly close lap times as they navigate this tough track.
Kevin Steele and Preston McRae awfully together in the past couple of races, still in this group with the likes of Wayne Grassi, who's just right behind. They seem to be all together in this 3-car tango at least, and they really haven't let each other go. They're just kind of filing in single file, and now it's a 4-car train. They have caught up to Cody Bird, and I was just about to talk about Cody Bird because he had closed the gap just to about 0.836 seconds to the race leader Cameron Stone, but it seems as though in this long run, it's not treating him well because he is falling back significantly, and now he has fallen back to the clutches of the 53 of McRae, starting with that line that I just mentioned with Kevin Steele and Wayne Grassi. So it was a 3-car pack, now make it 4, as they are now just about 4 seconds behind the race leader.
The biggest thing for Cody Bird right now is to keep a level head. when you're falling back through the field and you see those cars behind you getting bigger and bigger in your mirror, and then they get to you, it can be pretty nerve-wracking. And especially at a track like this, that's when you start to make mistakes, as we see him get a little bit loose through the corner, almost scraping the wall, very close there as we ride on board. Now he's just got to keep a level head. If his car is not on pace, let these guys go. Come back and attack them later. There's no point trying to throw crazy blocks and possibly wrecking yourself out on only lap 72. And you got a whole lot of racing ahead of you. But right now, the 44 and the 7 going to make easy work of him, as he's going to get off the throttle and let them go. He knows his car is not on pace.
And he possibly wants to get out of harm's way, especially if he's not very confident in his race car. He doesn't really want to push his car to the point where he can make a mistake and not only involve himself, but involve other drivers around him and make a bigger situation out of it. So I think it was probably the decision that he wanted to make, just to let them by for the moment, let them go at it in this longer run, try to stay comfortable, stay consistent, and really focus on himself rather than just trying to get by everybody, because it is a long race. It's just about 500 laps all the way. And Andre, just as I mentioned how quickly things go here at Bristol, you'd think just about 5 minutes ago we got the green flag. We're already at lap 75, almost 20 laps until the lap 100 mark, and then 25 more add on until we get the end of the stage 1. So quick here around Bristol, and you really just see how disorienting it is for a lot of these drivers. Just going around this racetrack, you're getting the banks, all the way in the banks, back to the straightaway, back to the turn, back to the straightaway. At some point, Andre, you got to get a little confused at where you are, whether you're getting this lap now or whether you're still in the back straightaway waiting to complete the lap.
Right, you can get a little bit turned around, but I tell you, one good little bit of info that I learned a while back that helps keep me oriented at a track like this is turn 1 is actually a lot different from turn 3. So turns 1 and 2 are a lot tighter at Bristol. Some people don't know that. They think both of the ends of the track are identical, but they're really not. 1 and 2 a lot tighter, not quite as sweeping. So if you feel your car getting a little bit tight, you know you're in 1 and 2. And if you got a lot of free motion and the car feels good, you're probably in 3 and 4. But confusion does definitely ensue. We have seen, or at least I've seen in many online leagues, and even myself in single-player NASCAR games, I've gotten turned around here. So a little bit difficult to keep yourself oriented when you're blazing around this track at 14 seconds per lap. But man, this battle between Bryson Hixenbaugh and the 9 car of Joseph Lester, I think is going to come to a pretty short conclusion, as the 9 car is going to probably lift off the throttle a little bit there, and that's going to put Bryson Hixenbaugh firmly in P9. So he has cracked the top 10, and he is on the charge to the front. So we're going to catch up with him later on, see if he can continue that charge. Right now, there's that number 47 machine, Boiver, trying to get a little bit further up in the field. He's had a good run so far tonight, but under attack from Rich Petrucco, who had that issue early on. Now trying to just make laps and make it to the end of the stage, where hopefully he can start to get things sorted out for himself.
And Rich Petrucco still trying to bounce back from that mishap there on pit road, where he did not get all the tires on the race car and he had to make an extra trip down. Luckily, he did not go a lap down in that process, so at least he was able to stick onto the lead lap, and he's been able to gain positions ever since. And now he's almost back up to this top 5. He's got one more car to get by. Right in front of him, that mellow yellow machine of Cody Bird to get through the top 5. He has caught him significantly, and Cody Bird still falling back through this field. Definitely not a long run car for him right now. He's probably better on the short runs. It seems as though that's where he shined within the first 10 to 15 laps. As soon as that gets by, though, it seems as though he's not as quick as some of the other drivers here. He's going to try to fight and keep himself in this top 10, but he's got the likes of Hixenbaugh, Boivert, and Cameron Caldwell. Let's fight along, and Christopher Hamann tagging along. He is still 1 lap down in 17th. As 64 just got into the wall there. That's going to allow Hixenbaugh to get by, possibly another train with the 47 of Boivert, and possibly Cameron Caldwell.
Yeah, a little bit of a bobble there by the 64. We've seen him almost get into the wall a few laps ago, and that time it wasn't an almost. It was a contact. The 12 car spinning around. The 9 car also involved as the yellow flag flies.
Caution out once again, this time involving the 12 of Cameron Caldwell. And this one was off of the corner. This is with Christopher Hamann in the 17 in turn 1, and there's the contact, the lap car. He gets into the 12, and then they get into the wall, then tags him extra. The 12 goes around right in front of the gaggle of those cars there. Joseph Lester was in that group, and he joins back on the racetrack. He's able to whip it back around straight with some damage to the rear end. Here's an extra look This is going into turn 1, and then looked like he might have had it saved, and then the 17 just tags him extra, trying to save his race car, and then sends the 12 around. 12 was able to whip back around, but it is not the same situation for the 17 of Hamann, who's now 2 laps down with huge damage to that front end. And a caution now. Andre will re-rack the field. Question is, do you go down pit road now in this stage with this long green flag run, or you think we might see some drivers stay out?
Man, that's a tough question. I think it's a darned if you do, darned if you don't situation. I think really for a lot of these guys, it depends on what the leader does. So Cameron Stone has hit pit road. Looks like Kevin Steele possibly going to join him behind them, as well as the 53. That is Preston McRae, Wayne Grassy, Rich Petrucco, Hixenbaugh. So most of the leaders have actually made their way down pit road. Looks like a couple of these guys opting to stay out. A couple of these guys have to stay out because they're a lap down. But yeah, that's kind of surprising, Ken. I didn't quite expect that many guys to come down pit road, especially so close to the end of the stage. You'd think at a track like this, track positions would be what they would value more.
Yeah, especially with the playoff drivers in this grid, the amount of playoff drivers we have, it's probably better that some drivers maybe might decide to split, stay out for track position, and it could benefit them going to the stage, especially how quick things happen at this track. But the general consensus was for everyone to go down pit road behind Cameron Stone. The distance between Cameron Stone and the rest of the field, it looked like Cameron was going all by himself down pit road, but then you just see all the rest of the drivers in the line come around back to the pit road or the pit lane on the straightaway, and you see Kevin Steele leading the rest of the field down. That's how much the gap was between Cameron Stone and the rest of this field, has proving just how dominant he's been so early in this race. So he will come out as your race leader, and the rest of the drivers that were a lap down, including Joseph Lester, Alex Princeton, there's Christopher Hamann with no front bumper, Zach Probston here, Cameron Caldwell, Brian Mabry. Lots of drivers stuck a lap down. You got to go all the way to 11th, which is pretty much everyone a lap down at the moment.
Yeah, so this pit sequence has surprised me a lot in a number of ways, but I want to go back to that incident real quick and talk a little bit about Cameron Caldwell. You can only take so much before you start to feel like a punching bag, and I got to say, Cameron Caldwell's been on the short end of the stick a few times in the playoffs so far, but this went a lot better for him than it could have. We saw he got spun around, he got turned around, but he managed to mostly keep it off the wall. Not too much damage to that 12 machine. He can keep on trucking. Meanwhile, the guy who got into him, 17, Chris Hamann, got a lot of front-end damage. So kind of the duality of this track right there was on full display, where a simple mistake can either end your night or possibly leave you with a car that can still make laps. So we got the 1 to green signal, and I am excited to get back underway here.
So we're going to go around to turn 2. All the drivers 1 lap down who just went down pit road, they are now exiting. So the likes of Delaney, you see him now, Joseph Lester, Brian Mabry, all those drivers are going to go 2 by 2, or at least single file since they went down pit road, but they will join the rest of the field. And Cameron Stone at the head. He has been unchallenged ever since the drop of the green flag. He'll have Kevin Steele to his inside. Surprise to 57. It shows the outside for this restart, but again, a huge jump just leaves Kevin Steele all the way to the bottom, and he will take back the race lead. We're back green, and look who actually gained the most out of that. Wayne Grassy was able to get on the outside. He's now up to 2nd.
A power move by that 7 to take advantage of the slow start by that inside row. Kevin Steele spinning his tires a little bit. 7 car was able to maneuver through all that and get right up into P2. And this is really the first time the 7 has been pretty much in clean air. He's got the leader in front of him, but he's got a bit of a gap now. So the car is pretty much feeling like he is in clean air. So we're going to be able to see now the true potential of that car. Can he run down the leader? Does he have a setup that is comparable? And, so far to even put yourself in a position where you can make those kinds of maneuvers, I think that car's got to be feeling pretty good for him. But we're taking a look now at the battle between Preston McRae and William Boisvert. These are 2 drivers that absolutely performed phenomenally last week. So far, they haven't quite got to the front tonight, but they have been lingering in that top 5, top 10, and they have really been making the charge. With all these pit stops, another thing to consider, Ken, is we have more opportunities to make setups to our cars and make changes to try and adapt them as the night goes on. But we got a replay, a little bit of an incident going on. It appears to involve the 63. Let's see what happened, Ken.
It's the 64 of Cody Bird, and it's coming into the corner, and it seems as though he got loose all by himself, almost tagged by Brian Mabry in the 3 car, but no other contact with any other driver, and luckily he was able to keep it straight. So no yellow, but Cody Bird will fall all the way back through the field. definitely not what you want to see. And of course, tires will come to a factor since he just went down pit road. That's going to hurt his tires immensely, having that slide. As you're on board with Zach Probst. Zach Probst currently sitting 12th. He was also put a lap down. Not sure where he was put a lap down, possibly within the lap traffic. Around probably Cameron Stone probably got to the lap traffic in terms of that long green flag run that we had right before that yellow came out. So possibly that's the situation for Probst. He's going to be battling with Cameron Caldwell just up ahead to get the lucky dog when we get the yellow flag at the end of stage number 1, which is just about in 25 laps. Cameron Stone will continue to lead. There is the 04 of Dave Fugue. He's down pit road. Let's see what happened.
Looks like he's coming through the corner here. Just scrapes the wall on exit. What a save. That inside wall was coming up quick. Right in front of the leader, too. You can see Cameron Stone motoring on by on the outside. What could have been a disastrous accident was completely averted by the phenomenal just wheelman skills of that 04. That was impressive.
Oh, man, and that must be scary for Cameron Stone, just seeing a driver almost going around, not really sure what he's going to do, whether he's going to save it or whether he's going to whip it back around, trying to overcorrect the race car. That must have been scary for the 57 of Stone, but luckily no yellow was resulted. And, of course, the 04 was able to move out of the way of the race leader, head down pit road to get his service on his race car in the 04. And another driver with a struggling night, currently sitting 4 laps down at 18th. Now he just got out of pit road. As you're looking between this fight, between the top 5 spot, this is 4th, 5th, between Preston McRae, who lost that spot to William Boisver, as you were just talking about, Andre, when they were fighting for position together. And now Preston McRae, the long run, especially in this run at the moment, is not treating him as well as a lot of these other drivers, so he's falling back just a little bit. Now Rich Petrucco, who we talked about, trying to gain back from that mishap on pit road earlier in this race. Going to try to look down and try to pounce for a P5.
We're on board with Rich Petrucco, and I gotta say, it's been quite a comeback to just watch unfold. After accidentally taking only left side tires on pit road, I kind of thought that his first stage was kind of forfeit at that point. You know, you're going to the back, you gotta fall back, get the tires you need, come down pit road again. But he actually managed to stay on the lead lap, and not only that, but he's now fighting for a top 5 position. And the further up the grid he can get now, the further up he's gonna start when this stage comes to a close and the next one begins. So track position means a lot at a track like Bristol. So he is going to definitely give it his all, trying to get around Preston McRae. But at the same time, McRae's going to be playing it defensive. He wants that top 5 position, like any driver would. But unfortunately, looks like Petrucco is closing in, and now it's a matter of can he stick it to the bottom well enough to make that pass.
And McRae is not only fighting for position, but he's fighting for playoff points. Remember, this is coming to the end of stage 1, so you're going to be wanting to get as many positions as you can, or at least hold on to your position for the moment so you can get those points in that top 10 in stage 1 and help your case. Let's say if you're not doing as well in the point standings, you're maybe near the cut line, that can give you an extra cushion, or at least give you a sigh of relief, knowing that you have those points to your benefit, especially with some drivers not doing so well in this race. But you just saw the 27 get him around, currently the faster car on this run right now, so he's up to 5th. Going to get back, I think, a strong comeback for that 27 with that mistake earlier in this race. Kevin Steele, Wayne Grassy still 2nd and 3rd. And Cameron Stone continues to lead this race just about by 2 seconds. And now, Andre, you're seeing just how short this track is and how close and how short the leader can get to lap traffic. And just very easy to get there around this racetrack. He's going to get around the 217 and Jack Durham, but as soon as you start getting up through this ladder, Andre, it's going to get even tougher, especially if the long green flag run persists all the way to the stage end at lap 125.
Right, when you get to traffic at a track like this, you don't ever get out of that traffic. The cars are pretty much going to keep separating, keep falling further and further back from one another until eventually you're pretty much always in traffic, give or take, no matter where you are on the track. So definitely a tough situation, and it's really not good for the likes of Cameron Caldwell, who's hoping to get the lucky dog, because with Cameron Stone on the hunt to lap some more drivers, that could potentially put somebody else in that lucky dog position and snatch it away from Cameron Caldwell, who's already had a rough night, and I think that would definitely be demoralizing to lose the lucky dog so late into the run, especially when he is so far ahead of the next cars behind him that are a lap now. So Cameron Stone now to the inside of his teammate Bryson Hicksonbaugh as they make their way through 3 and 4 towards the stripe. is going to put him a lap down, most likely by the end of turns 1 and 2, and he does. New lucky dog position, Bryson Hixenbach. So Cameron Caldwell going to have a battle on his hands if he wants to try to get that back. Cody Bird now a lap down. Unfortunately, I think this lucky dog has slipped through the fingers of Cameron Caldwell.
Yeah, and very quickly at that. It was just a moment for Cameron Caldwell to just pray that Cameron Stone did not get up to those drivers in that span of time, but already with just 5 laps to go left in the stage, and now approaching lap number 121, going to 125, and now has gone by both Hixenbach, his teammate, and Cody Bird in the 64. We got one driver in the garage, and that is currently the 42 of Josh Coppernoll, but actually just a connection issue, so he'll be back on the racetrack. The driver who was in the garage, who is out of this race for good, just an update, the 66 of Daniel Fields. He has disconnected, so his night is over here, Bristol. Not the night he wanted to see whatsoever. That was close between Coppernoll and Cameron Stone, and as I was just talking about Andre, just quickly getting to the lap traffic, but it can be tough. You've got some drivers utilizing the high lane, taking your line, and you really have to adapt, use a different line that you're not comfortable with to try and get by, and that can signal trouble.
Absolutely it can, and you know, we're riding on board right now with Cameron Stone as he is running down some more lap traffic. Probably not going to get to them by the end of stage 1. We're on lap 124 or 125, but I think that camera angle really does this track a lot of justice, not only in showing you how high this banking is, but showing you how short of an amount of time they're on the straightaway before they're just getting right back into those turns. So currently on lap 125, once the top 10 cross the line, that's going to be the end of the stage, but Cameron Stone is going to take stage 1.
Cameron Stone takes stage 1, gonna still wait until the yellow flag comes out, and now the yellow flag is initiated. There's the flag man bringing out that yellow flag just in time. The stage 1 has concluded, and your winner for stage 1, and get all those points to his benefit, is the 57 of Cameron Stone. Has led pretty much every single lap tonight. He has not fallen off ever since. Oh boy, we're looking at another strong run, Andre, just another dominating run. And if you're Cameron Stone, Andre, this is what you gotta do. Just come out with the off the suspension at Richmond after you lose those points for not attending that race because of that suspension. You come back dominating this race and putting on a statement to the rest of this field.
Absolutely, and the thing about Cameron Stone's race so far tonight is that he's been dominant. He's been fast. We know he's got the car to beat, even faster than the likes of Bryson Hixenbach, which is something that maybe not a lot of spectators were expecting. But there's only one lap that matters, and that's the last lap. And at a track like this, getting to that last lap is easier said than done. So Cameron Stone's got to keep his he's got to keep his head in the game, stay consistent, stay smooth, and don't get into any incidents. Maybe be a little patient with the lap traffic. A lot of these leaders, they think, oh, this guy's in my way, he's a lap down, get out of my way, and they kind of push the issue, and that only leads to more issues. Sometimes you got to have a little bit of patience because it's better to give a little and survive than to try to take more than you can choose. So Cameron Stone making his way down pit road, probably going to be a few drivers following him. That's Rich Petrucco, William Boyver. We expect pretty much all of the leaders to make their way down pit road, and of course, next time around, the lapped cars can also pit. So we're going to see how this shakes out.
That's a great point you mentioned, Andre, but no debate on whether all the leaders are going to go down pit road because they did. The Cameron Stone will lead them all down. He will lead them all out as well with a huge gap. And Wayne Grassi will be out of pit road as well. And while everyone's getting out of pit road, including the stage 1 winner, we're going to bring him in and see exactly what his thoughts are after taking stage 1 and really just dominating the rest of this field. We'll bring him in. First of all, welcome Cameron Stone to the 3Y TV booth. You got a copy with us?
Yes, sir.
All right, Cameron, you have dominated every single lap of this race so far. You've led all 127 laps, and there have been a couple of differing runs. You saw that yellow as soon as the green flag came out, and then you had another short yellow followed by, and then you have these long green flag runs. Just tell us how that Ford Mustang is looking and feeling for you right now behind the wheel.
This thing feels amazing. It's hooked up. I mean, short run, these guys can kind of hang with me, but after about 20, 30 laps, it just pulls off. I mean, we're rolling the bottom better than everybody. We can pass the lap cars pretty easy. So as long as we keep this thing clean, we should end up in victory lane tonight.
And going back to the conversation about lap traffic, we saw you getting by some of those on the bottom, and you just mentioned how your car is great on the bottom. But do you think there will be a little more chaos or a little more adaptability, in fact, that when you're getting by those lap cars, or if that long run comes back around where you have to get through more drivers, especially through the top 10, do you think it may be more difficult?
Yeah, I think if we get a good long run here and I start catching cars that haven't been lapped yet, they'll put up a bigger fight than the guys that I've gotten to so far. Obviously, if you start lapping the top 5 guys, they're gonna give you a run for it. So hopefully they'll stay clean.
All right, Cameron. Well, we wish you luck, and we hope to see you in that classy 57 Mustang out continuing leading this race. We wish you luck.
Appreciate it, boys.
And to bring him back to the green flag, and we had the 1 to green signal from the pace truck, and he'll immediately go back down to the likes of pit road. So Cameron Stone will lead them all back to the green flag, and another phenomenal jump will push him out by just a second going into turn 1. Wayne Grassi will go for second. Rich Petrucco and the 47 of Boysburg were looking for a P3, but the 47 got the better of it to the high side. They'll still single file as the 57 leads him back to the lap around.
The battle to watch right now, I think, is the battle for second place, because Boyver now up into the podium position, P3. He's got Rich Petrucco on the hunt, and now, just as they were getting into a battle, the caution has flown. We're not entirely sure what's happened yet. We got a car down pit road. Possibly Dave Fugue involved in that. We heard some radio chatter, as well as the 42, Josh Coppernall. Let's take a look at the replay, Ken.
No, actually, the driver who went around was Jonathan Delaney in the 6 car. He was involved with the 53 of Preston McRae. Joseph Lester also got a piece of this as well. This happened in front. You see the 9 all the way at the bottom of your screen. The 6 of Jonathan Delaney joins late. McRae also in this race as well. This is the pack here. We thought it was Coppernall since he was down pit road, but this is exactly what happened. The 9 of Joseph Lester gets into the outside wall, gets back up into the 53, and then Delaney joins the party. He has damage, and hard lick for all 3 of those Chevrolet Camaros. It's not looking good out there. Very messy.
No, when I seen Delaney coming into the camera shot so hot, at first I thought he just didn't brake, like he didn't know what was going on. But upon further review, you can see that tire smoke. He had that thing locked up as hard as he could lock it up, and it ultimately just happened to slide into the guy in front of him. So unfortunate, and it seems like that 6 machine John Delaney has struggled with that car all night long, and now that might be enough damage to possibly end his day.
Yeah, this is on board with the 6 of Delaney into the back of Dave Fugue, and then he gets into the front bumper of Preston McRae, and a tough run for Preston McRae. We saw him doing well. We talked well about him since he was up in this top 5 and pretty consistent, but now this really sets his day into stone at least, and really does not do great for that race car, at least for Joseph Lester and Preston McRae and Jonathan Delaney, and of course Dave Fugue as well. Got a caution out once again on lap number 136. We'll take a short break and take some commercials along the road, and we'll be right back with green flag action. You're watching the Galaxy Cup Series playoffs on 3Y TV. Welcome back to the Galaxy Cup Series round of 16 from Bristol Motor Speedway. Kenneth Bueno and Andre Grambush with you as we just got the green flag on lap 139 with Cameron Stone at the head of the field once again. After that yellow with Jonathan Delaney, Preston McRae, Joseph Lester, and Dave Fugue. We are back under the green flag, and already a quick restart for the 57 as he's done all night long. He's going to shoot out to the front of the field. But most notably, we've got a lot of drivers between fourth on back working together for position.
Yeah, we got a bit of a freight train forming back there, and it all starts with the 47 that's the 26 of Rich Petrucco. He's moved up into the podium position. P3 behind him, it's Kevin Steele and William Boisvert battling it out for that fourth position. Boisvert getting right up against that wall, the ultra high line, getting that run down the straightaway, but unfortunately nowhere to go with it. As Kevin Steele is going to be able to defend that position for another lap, and behind them you've got the lap car, that's the 162, so he's going to be trying to maybe get the lucky dog if he can. It's going to be a tough fight for the lucky dog, especially if you get this long green flag run. And as we've seen, once the leader starts lapping more and more cars, it's easy for that lucky dog to slip right through your fingers. But now, side by side, William Boisvert to the inside of the 44. The 44 getting a hard charge out of the corner, possibly going to defend that position for another lap.
It's really hard for the 47 to contend all the way to the bottom. You see how much of a run the 44 gets on the straightaways as soon as they exit the corner. And Zach Probst also joining this party as well. And you just mentioned he's a lap down, and he is currently in the lucky dog position. Of course, that is all up to if Cameron Stone is able to get back around to lap traffic and is able to lap Hicksonball, Caldwell, and all the drivers on the lead lap at the moment. So Probst looking good right now in the lucky dog position, and he's probably hoping for a yellow flag to come out so he can get back on this lead lap, try to contend for lead lap position, and possibly better out of this race at the moment. So he's all by himself, but looking right now, still two-car battle between Kevin Steele and William Boisvert. You're on board now with the second place Wayne Grassi, as really the gap has not grown too much, but it has grown significantly at the point since Cameron Stone gets those restarts, and he really just sets the gap already. It's not the same situation as, let's say, they start evenly and then throughout the run the next couple laps, then the leader starts to gap himself. We've seen Andre, not even in this race, but in all the races past with likes of Hicksonball, just getting those early restarts really sets your tone and already gives you that advantage and a cushion with the gap all the way back to second place.
It's so hard to time your restarts with the leader, especially in a simulation like iRacing, where maybe the audio isn't quite as crisp as it would be in real life, where you're just listening to the revs of the car next to you. You really got to be vigilant. And honestly, what I've noticed for restart strategy oftentimes is drivers will have spotters say right when the leader goes. A lot of these drivers don't have spotters. I'm looking at the entry list right now. There's only 2 drivers that have spotters available to them. So the leader does have a huge advantage on these restarts, being able to set the pace and pretty much get a good 5 or 6 car length gap by default that they can then build upon. So definitely a good point there. The leader has an amazing ability to just kind of control that at the start, like you said. So behind the leader, though, Rich Petrucco getting closer and closer to that 7 car. The last few laps, he has closed that gap, pulling away from the car behind him, and now he's there. He is on the bumper of that 7 car, and he's probably going to have to try to pass him on the bottom if he wants to pass him at all, but we've seen tonight the bottom is not the preferred line. It's very difficult. Unlike Richmond, the bottom seems to be a little bit slower in pace. Now, actually, the high side goes Petrucco. The 7 gave him the bottom lane a little bit off pace, so now P2 is going to go to Petrucco.
And now the 7 will have to file back behind Joseph Lester, who just merged back on the racetrack. He is on the fresh tire, so he will get by the 27, and he'll try to rebound from that incident just a couple of moments ago, right before we hit that commercial break. But still side by side with Petrucco to the bottom. Now the 9 will get the spot away, at least get around Petrucco for the time being. He is currently sitting 16 laps down in 17th, so he's going to try and at least try to soften the blow for right now. As you're on board with your race leader, and you see the gap there between himself, Lester, and Petrucco. And look at the suspension here, Andre. Just another key look at one of these race cars, and you see how much the suspension can bump around a track like this. You see how they are on the straightaways. It's much bumpier on the straightaways compared to the corners. It seems relatively stable, and then you see as soon as it gets back to the straightaways, it starts to bump around a lot. Lots of toll on the suspension through a lot of this race.
You know, one of the things that surprises me most about that camera shot is how compressed that spring is. These setups got to have those right rears absolutely cranked down. And sometimes that's what you want. You want that right rear to be a little bit stiffer so that you kind of get that free on entry feeling. So definitely the driver's throwing the wrenches at it and throwing some crazy setups on these cars. But we're on board now with the 64 machine. That's Cody Bird as he makes a maneuver on the bottom of the 3 car. That's Brian Mabry. Not quite going to stick. And that's been the reoccurring story all night long. That bottom line just seems to be really difficult to navigate.
Yeah, and in only some cases it has worked for a couple of drivers. Of course, being an example, William Boivert got around Kevin Steele in the 44 by using that bottom, and he tried it for a couple of laps, and he knew his car was faster than the 44s at the moment. He's now to the back bumper of the 7 of Wayne Grassi. You're still on board with Cody Bird, and there's a little bit of gap between himself and the rest of these drivers. There is back to the battle that I was just talking about between Wayne Grassi and William Boivert. And Boivert certainly has a quick car throughout this longer run, Andre, and maybe some adjustments down pit road really did help his car out because, Andre, we saw this earlier in the race where he really wasn't as quick. He was just falling back a little bit through the field. Now Wayne Grassi will possibly let him go on the bottom like he did with Petrucco in the 27. So he'll try not to use up his stuff trying to battle with the car. Just wait for the right moment to get by during this long run if we continue to have it at the moment. So William Boivert gets by. Now he's in a P3 in the podium spot.
Switching gears a bit, going up towards the front of the field, the number 9 machine, a lap down, has actually caught the leader with those fresher tires. The question is, how much pressure does he apply and how defensive does Cameron Stone play it? Because this is honestly a bit of an interesting dynamic, Ken, because the leader has everything to lose, and the 9 car doesn't have a whole lot to lose. He wants to get ahead of the leader, get one of those laps back, and his car, I think with these fresher tires, could be capable of it, as now smoke emerging from the 9 car. He goes off pace. Something has happened as we ride on board.
Oh, he has blown up on the racetrack. Trouble with the engine as soon as he merged back, just trying to get back and soften the blow, but it has not worked at all. You see, this is going into turn 1, and I think right at this moment, the engine just sputters, and that is really it for that 9 car. Just tried to muster that position with the amount of damage he had on it, and now it is not going to play a right to him at all. He's still on the racetrack, though. I'm surprised he's not made a trip down pit road, but now he will dip to the apron, so he'll get out of harm's way, go back into pit road. Fortunately, with the iRacing service, it's not unlike real life, but when a car blows up like that, when they have engine issues, you don't see a lot of, there's no fluid on the racetrack on the simulation, so that won't affect any of the drivers right now on the racetrack, as opposed to it probably making the track a little bit slicker with some of the oil on the racetrack in real life. So no issues there for any of the other drivers on the track. They'll just have to continue running their way around as Lester is out of harm's way. Cameron Stone is just able to troop on like he has been all night long. So now Rich Petrucco actually went up to second with that. So he is now up to second. He was up to P3, but he's gotten by. So he is now just trying to get back up to the race leader where he started, P2 in this race.
Trying to get to the race leader indeed, but I tell you what, that number 57 machine is just dialed in. The gap to second place has continued to grow as the 27 getting a little bit loose in the corner there. You saw it kind of float the rear end towards the wall there, and he managed to gather it up. We're now on board with that 27 machine, and look at the way he's working this wheel. When he goes through the corner, he's not just turning it and holding it at a steady radius. He is constantly working that throughout the corner, readjusting his car and correcting it, and that's exactly what you have to do when you're fighting these loose race cars like they are tonight.
And that could also relate back to the setups that these drivers make. Again, this series in the Galaxy Cup Series is all open setup, so all these drivers are able to tinker around with their cars as much as they can to allow for the perfect setup. Not only that is just quick on the racetrack in general, but it feels good to the driver themselves. And of course, that also plays into another question. How much are you willing to risk with the car being faster but not as comfortable in your hands, where you have to really wheel the car back around? You really have to fight the race car in order to make it stick in all these corners, but at the same time, that trade-off is that you're just a little bit faster on the racetrack. That's something that these drivers really face every week here, Andre. They really have to think about how much they're willing to sacrifice for speed, as opposed to maybe having a race car that is good within their comfortability, and they're able to just have that race car and wheel it around and the smoothest they can. But at some points, when you have to try and get a little quicker with the setups, it could result in a car that's not as comfortable for the driver, and they really have to fight it around. They really have to face that challenge as the night goes on. But it is better, though, the positive side for the 27, that he's all in clean air. He's all by himself. There's about 2 seconds between himself and William Boisvert, and about 5 seconds between himself and the race leader. So not a lot of cars on the racetrack around him. Therefore, he's able to really fight the car and run the racetrack as opposed to racing the cars around him. And that really is a challenge for a lot of these drivers. And in fact, every driver going into every week of this series.
Right, talking about the leader, he had a heart-stopping moment when we were looking at the 7 car. The 30 car actually got into the wall in front of him and caused a huge checkup too wide right in front of him. So that's 2 near misses that Cameron Stone's had to endure tonight. But the caution has flown. We've got a couple cars down pit road. Perhaps we're going to see if we can identify what happened. But
actually,
right now, we're going to...
Yeah, Alex Princeton is involved in this. He went all the way down the racetrack. He was spinning, and he's got huge damage to the 5 race car. I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Andre, but this was a huge development here. We're looking around the racetrack, and it all started with the 5 Alex Princeton. He got contact with the 217 of Durham, and then the 3 of Mabry comes in, and Kevin Steele joins this picture. Oh, hard contact. Petrucco almost got a piece of that as well. Hard contact there. Grassie's involved. McRae had to slow that thing down. Hicksonball had to split the middle, and he's got damage there as well, and it did not end with Cameron Caldwell. Christopher Hallman, huge wreck here on lap 179.
Man, I wish I was a mind reader, because I'd love to know what Hicksonball was thinking when he aimed his car towards that gap and just had to hope that it stuck. But man, that's a huge change up to this race, because the 44 and the 7, Wayne Grassie and Kevin Steele, both of those drivers competitive tonight, running in the top 3 at different points throughout the night. Now, with heavy damage, they might not be able to be on pace. Those cars are going to have a lot of damage holding them up. So quite the shakeup, and that's going to open the door for some of these guys that maybe were a little bit further back, didn't quite have the hot setups. Now they're going to be able to get that track position and see what they can do with it.
Man, that was lucky for Cameron Stone, who was able to get in front of that before all of that happened. So I'm probably happy that he was able to get by before that happened. And Rich Petrucco obviously not in the right place at the right time. And I think he might have some damage that he'll take time to fix. So that in turn will allow William Boiver to get out in second. Petrucco did not take as much time down pit road. He's got damage to the rear end of that race car, but I don't think that'll affect the downforce too much on this racetrack. Petrucco will actually get out in second. He actually beat the 47 out of pit road. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, Stone, Petrucco, and Boivert. And then you look back to the rest of the field. Wayne Grassie with heavy damage to that race car. He was sitting within the top 5, actually within this top 10, I'd say, and just trying to limp away his round and just try to find his way, just letting a couple drivers by, and now he's got heavy damage. He's going to have to get that fixed. So this will allow Cameron Caldwell to be 4th, but as you see there, Andre, just a lot of damage to that race car, and then still lots of drivers facing the sword here tonight.
Absolutely. It's been a rough night for pretty much everybody involved. And, you know, as much fun as this short track action can be for us spectators, I'm sure these drivers are just thanking whatever deity they choose that we're going to another track next week that's not a short track. It's not one of these tiny little, short tracks where we're getting into traffic 24/7, having all these cautions. They're ready to get to a slightly bigger, more organized, maybe more methodical track, you know. So, got to be frustrating for a lot of these guys, but I'll tell you, it does put on quite a show for a lot of us spectators. And it would appear, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the 12 machine, Cameron Caldwell, is back on the lead lap. So that's a huge development. He was fighting and scrounging for that lucky dog position. It was unfortunately taken away from him. Now, back on the lead lap and ready to challenge.
Yeah, Cameron Caldwell was a lap down earlier in this race, and you just mentioned got back in the lead lap. So I think the positive side of that, even though he got some damage from that wreck, he's back in the top in the lead lap. But not only in the lead lap he's in that top 5. He's going to get that outside on this green flag restart as Cameron Stone continues to lead the rest of the way through. Cameron Caldwell, though, although the drivers getting on that restart on the outside, they're having a phenomenal run. Drivers on the inside not faring much better. They seem to check up a little more, and they don't have the great runs. And then to the outside, that's where a lot of drivers have advantage. So Cameron Caldwell up to second, but Petrucco and Boiver will be third and fourth.
Yeah, it seems like there's just not much grip on the bottom for these guys to step on the throttle. Cameron Stone obviously opting to take the high side almost every time on these restarts, and I think there's a reason for it. There's a method to his madness, and I think that top line just got the grip. But right now, it's the Cam and Cam show. I'll tell you, the 12 car not allowing Cameron Stone to build the gap that he built with Wayne Grassy. He is holding his own, lap times seeming fairly similar. And behind them, he's got the 27 and the 47, Rich Petrucco, William Boyver catching up. We got a 3-car train, and if they can just get within another 10th or 2 of Cameron Stone, that's going to be a 4-car train for the lead.
And it's all dependent on whether the 12 of Cameron Caldwell can get up to the fellow Cameron and Cameron Stone. And it really, just like you mentioned, just not too much of a gap between the race leader and the rest of the guys behind. So it's a 4-car battle right now, and mostly 3 between Boyvert and Rich Petrucco. That might have been awfully close between those two at the moment, but they're going to continue by as we get to lap 190, and we're going to get up to stage 2. We're about to get 10 laps away from the 50 lap to go mark until we get to stage number 2 at lap 250, and then by then we'll have the caution on stage 2, and then we'll go all the way to lap 500, all the way to the checkered flag at the end of this race. But Andre, I think some long runs mixed in with some short runs by this point in this race, and it has been intriguing to see, for the most part, a lot of these drivers adapt to that. Of course, we saw a lot of those drivers involved in incidents. We just have 8 cars left on the lead lap, and what's really been notable, at least with these differing runs?
Well, I'll tell you the notable thing is the insane difference in strategy. We've got drivers that clearly have short run setups like Cody Bird. We got drivers that have long run setups like Cameron Stone. Another thing that's interested me is how Bryson Hicksonbaugh has not been very dominant tonight. He's not even been in the picture. We barely talked about him. This is a guy who's won, I believe, 12 races this season, and tonight, not even a horse in the race. So 13 wins actually for Hicksonbaugh, I stand corrected. And he's just kind of riding around back there in P7. He's kind of gone down the grid, gone up the grid. I got to wonder how much he's pushing the car. You'd think he'd want to be up there in P2 trying to help out his teammate, Cameron Stone, maybe battle it out with these guys behind him and help him build a gap. But, that's only if the car is capable of it. It doesn't quite seem like it is. But, moving back up the grid, I'll tell you, this battle for second place is insane. We got Rich Petrucco, William Boyver, Cameron Caldwell. They are bumper to bumper, 3 cars under a blanket. And now, Rich Petrucco moving to the bottom lane, trying to make a move for second place. He's going to get the side draft, but unfortunately, the run out of the corner is just going to be too strong for that 12 car. Not quite going to be able to make it stick yet. They've gone too wide for second place now.
Oh, and Petrucco got loose off that corner. Is going to allow the 12 to get by. No battle between them. And now the 47 will sweep by to the outside. Still a 3-car train now. I believe Rich Petrucco has now gone to the caboose position. So he will now be the last one in this group. And still maintaining fairly strong to Cameron Stone. But that lead continues to grow as these drivers are getting around the racetrack. And as you see, just a little bit up ahead, these drivers, Cameron Stone is now starting to get by lap traffic once more. I just got by Josh Coppern on the 42, but still, Andre, it is developing up at the top of this field. I just saw Cameron Caldwell get loose, allowed the 47 and the 27 to get by, but might figure that the 12 might get up here very soon again.
It's funny, we saw these guys run under a blanket for so long, but as soon as passes start being made, and the intensity gets turned up, that's when these guys start to bobble. They start getting loose. They're pushing the car just a little bit beyond its limits. And you can tell, man, these guys are giving it their all, trying to stay as far up in the grid as they can. Should we get that restart, you want to start up front. You don't want anybody in front of you who might spin their tires or hold you up on those restarts. So everybody in this 3-car gaggle giving it everything they got. But now it seems like the 12 car maybe falling off pace a little bit. Contact between 2 cars there. I believe that's Bryson Hicksonbaugh and Josh Coppernall in the 42. Let's take a look at the replay there.
And everybody was getting around Coppernall at this point. We saw Petrucco and Boyver and Caldwell get around that 42. And 63 was getting off the corner, and then 42 just actually goes down into him, and just a little bobble there between the two. Luckily, none of them went around. The 63 was able to get back by, so Bryson Hicksonbaugh still up into 6th place. Going to have a little bit of ground to catch up to Cody Bird to get up into this top 5. And again, back to that conversation with Hicksonbaugh, Andre. 13 race wins and won at a short track last season. And especially where it was at Richmond, where he had won not only the playoff race last week, but he won the regular season race all the way back earlier in this season when the playoffs really weren't in conversation. So you think with that short track stellarness of that 63 that he'd probably do much better here at Bristol, but really the last great Coliseum is really threatening his run. And I think with the amount of cars that have gotten out of this race, the amount of cars that have been in carnage, that have sustained heavy damage, and drivers that are now multiple laps down, all the way up to ninth with Drumhiller 2 laps down, it has really helped his case in terms of he can gain a lot more ground, even if his setup is not that strong.
I wholeheartedly agree. And, it's kind of funny. I don't think there's too many drivers out there where we would be looking at them running in P6 and say, yeah, they're not having the best night, But that just stands to how dominant Bryson Hixenbaugh has been this year, to the point where a top 10 finish, which is great by any means for any driver, is looking lackluster based on his other performances. But I almost wonder if he hurt us, man, because as soon as we said he wasn't in the show, he actually started making some moves, gaining some positions, and moving up the grid, but now falling back a little bit further to the leader. The gap was around 4 seconds, hovered around there for a while, now back to 5 seconds. We're taking a look at Rich Petrucco as he now, once again, has finally caught up to the 47 William Boyver. They were battling earlier, obviously. Ooh, looks like the 47 might have gotten to the wall a little bit. That's going to close the gap up huge and open up the door for a potential move here. But these guys have been battling it out for quite some time tonight, and now he's back and ready to be on the attack again.
You know how the saying goes, it takes two to tango, and this party has not ended at all. They are still within each other, and they have really brought themselves in a package up to the front of this field. Both of them have been relatively close ever since they fell to the field, then came all the way back. So Petrucco and the 47 are still side by side. Got Coppernoll down to the pit road. You just saw him there under the apron, so he's going to get service. He is currently sitting 5 laps down in 12th. But Andre's still side by side, but you got to think this is still growing the gap. Now up to 4.2 from the race leader.
Anytime the drivers behind the leader are battling it out, that's going to allow the leader to drive away. A little bit less so at a track like this, because the leader's probably also engaged in a battle of his own when he's constantly in lap traffic. So definitely allowing him to get away a little bit. But right now, Cameron Stone does have his hands full. You can see he's gaining on the 162 machine. Zach Probst now around the 53 machine. And on the high side, those guys are going to let him go no problem. The 3 cars behind the 162, and I noticed a couple times he's kind of locked up his tires in the corner, so definitely heavy braking for that 3. I'm not sure if that's due to some damage that he acquired earlier in one of those incidents, or maybe if the car is just not feeling right, but it's kind of interesting to see drivers locking the tires up going into the corners at a track like Bristol.
There's Wayne Grassi there in the 7, currently sitting in 7th. He is the driver at risk of being put a lap down, currently running that low line right to the inside of the 217 of Jack Durham. And Cameron Stone did mention at the end of stage 1 with that interview, he did say that as soon as he was going to start getting up to this top 10, and as soon as lap traffic was going to continue going onto the drivers on the lead lap, and he was going to continue trying to lap the rest of this field, it was going to get a lot more difficult. And especially with a lot more cars in this race, even if he's already lapped them, they are still in the group, and it's still difficult to get around them, trying to predict their lines and maybe trying to find out where they're stronger, or at least where they're occupying the lane, so you can try to find a way to get around them. This time, though, it is relatively easy for the 57. He gets around the 7 of Wayne Grassi, so that leaves just 6 cars on the lead lap. Andre, maybe reminiscent to what we saw at Darlington?
Oh, Cam's probably hoping not. He does not want a repeat of Darlington, but right now, it's a scary sight for that leader, man. There's a whole gaggle of cars kind of dissipating now. They single-filed it out to let him by, but still, he's got the 30 car right in front of him, trying to figure out how to get around him. He's on the bottom now, definitely not the preferred line, but a lot of traffic to work his way through for the leader. And while this is going on, the battle for second place has not died out. Petrucco is still right on the bumper of William Boyver, giving it everything that he possibly can. And I've noticed the 47 is running a lot higher entry, but about halfway through the corner, he's turning down the banking. And that's something we call diamonding the corner. And what that does is it helps you get the run out of the corner to carry that momentum and sort of cut down the banking and get that speed. So it's a difficult line to pull off at a track like Bristol, but Boyver doing it absolutely textbook, like you would expect to see. You can see him right up against the wall, and then boom, right here, he's coming down about half a lane to a lane, depending on which end of the track he's at. So definitely fun to watch how these drivers are navigating the track, because it seems like everybody's got their own preferred lines, and Petrucco right now running a little bit lower than that 47.
I think I might have misworded, or at least chose the wrong words to say when I meant Darlington. I was talking about Hixenbaugh in Darlington, where you lapped the entire field. And so Cameron Stone probably looking at that situation with just 6 cars left on the lead lap, probably thinking probably thinking about lapping the entire field and pulling a Hixenbaugh and going in the same direction as his fellow high side teammates. So now that just leaves 6 cars. So Cameron Caldwell is the final car in this lead lap. And then goes Cody Bird sitting in the top 5. Bryson Hixenbaugh currently sitting in 4th. He just got around Zach Probst's lap car in 8th. Rich Petrucco is 3rd, still in tango with the 47 of William Boivert. Still really working together. And there's the 12 of Cameron Caldwell. And he started early on this restart, started 2nd. It really fell back ever since, fighting with the 47 and the 27. And especially with that damage, it is really not helping his case. There's the 57 of Cameron Stone. So he's going to try and look around and go for 5 cars on the lead lap.
Pulling a Hixenbaugh. I like that phrase. That's, if I'm Bryson Hixenbaugh and my name is becoming an adjective for lapping the field, that's got to feel pretty good. But I tell you what, he's not the star tonight. Cameron Stone now working his way around Cameron Caldwell. I mean, the speed in this 57 is incredible. Cameron Caldwell, we know he has a decent car. He was running up in the top 5, still running in the top 5, but that's just not enough. It's still not enough to be fast. You have to be super fast if you want to compete with that 57 tonight, as he is just dicing his way through traffic, now creeping up on that 53 once more to put Preston McRae another lap down. He's just trying to make it to the end of the stage, trying to take it easy and survive and try to gather it up, but we got 20 laps to go in the stage, and I tell you what, I think stage 3 is going to be something, because these guys aren't going to want to repeat at Darlington. They don't want everybody to go a lap down. I'm sure Cameron Stone wants that, but they're going to do everything they can to get ahead of Cameron Stone, and I think it's all going to rely on those restarts. They're going to have to get that jump and prevent him from building those big gaps right out the gate. And if they can do that, they're going to push those cars and get aggressive, trying to get ahead of that 57 machine.
Yeah, they're going to do everything they can to get around him, because if they haven't been able to get around him through these runs, and especially with that restarts, they're going to try and nail everything they can to have some of that advantage over the 57. But back again to the 57 setup, and when we talk to him at the conclusion of stage 1, and we're most likely going to talk to him at the end of stage 2 with just about 15 laps to go until we get to the conclusion of stage 2 at lap 250. But Cameron Stone was saying that his car was good on the bottom as well. So it was not only the top where he was able to work and be consistent and quick at the same time, he was also able to work the bottom around lap cars and still be quick in that process. So it is, on both sides, it is phenomenal for that 57. It has been clicking on all cylinders for him and his high side team, and they really nailed the setup into this weekend. You're looking now between Hixenbaugh, there's Randy Drumhiller. He is 3 laps down in the final spot of the top 10. There's Rich Petrucco sitting in 4th. Hixenbaugh actually got by Petrucco, so the battle between Boivert and Petrucco really fell apart now. Hixenbaugh, though, on this long run, really striving.
This is going to be interesting. If Hixenbaugh can get around Boivert and keep his 2nd place position through the pit sequence and start on that front row, he might be the only driver right now capable of challenging that 57. So we might see a shakeup. We might not see a repeat of these restarts we've seen all night long. And like I said, I think Hixenbaugh hurt us. We talked about him not performing super well all night long, and now he has worked his way all the way up into P3, challenging for P2. Boivert doing a great job, as he has all night long, playing it defensively, though.
Playing defense. In terms of a lot of other sports, they say defense wins championships. Well, not necessarily in this case. Boivert, obviously not a playoff driver, but defense certainly playing to effect. Now Hixenbaugh will have to adapt his line to the bottom, try to make something stick. But that 47, like you said earlier, Andre, and his strategy with really moving a lane down on the exit of the corners and working that high line in that textbook fashion, it is still giving him the advantage off of every corner. And no matter how many times that 63 looks to the bottom, you're looking on board with the Chevrolet Camaro now, still looking to the apron, trying to look a couple lanes down, and you see the seams there in the middle of the racetrack. Now as the 47 gets by the 17 of Christopher Hamann, they're going to try to get by, and 63 still hasn't been able to get there, but 8 laps to go now in the stage. Cameron Stone still up front. Look at the gap, 15.6 seconds. Remarkable. And he's there.
Yeah, he's there. He is on the inside of Bryson Hixenbaugh, putting his teammate 1 lap down after this corner, and now only 1 car remaining on the lead lap. That's going to be William Boivert. and he is on his bumper. He's going to have about 5 laps to try to put Boyver another lap down. It's going to be a tall order. We've seen Boyver play the defense absolutely perfectly all night long, diamonding those corners and just nailing it. But again, it's not enough to be fast. As we can see, the 57 starting to edge out the 47, and Boyver, at great risk of going a lap down, is now 57 has cleared him, and with that, he has lapped the entire field before the conclusion of stage 2.
And he has done the Hickson ball, as I just said earlier in this race. So he will now lap the entire field. And I think more remarkably in this case, Andre, he's done it so early in this race. When we were at Darlington a couple weeks back, when we were at Darlington, we saw Hickson ball do it. And of course, it is still an amazing achievement. It is still wild to see that happen, but he did it fairly late in the race. When we were in stage 3, we were already reaching the home stretch of the race, so it made a lot more sense, and the pit cycle really helped this situation out. But to do it before the end of stage 2, that is mind-boggling.
You know, this is really crazy to see. We said last week we probably would never see anything like that again, and immediately we're seeing something like that again. So another instance of just absolute domination. This time it's Cameron Stone leading the way, and you know, this got to be demoralizing for a lot of the drivers in the field when only one of these guys is going to get the lucky dog. Most of these guys are going to stay a lap down or laps down, and unless something absolutely drastic were to happen, they're kind of out of the picture. They're stuck where they're at. Cameron Stone crossing the line to win the stage. The caution has flown, and that's it. That's a dominant stage 2 for Cameron Stone.
Definitely going to take a moment to talk to him. This will be after the pit cycle. We'll let them get their 4 tires and fuel. And with this caution, though, it will help only one driver. That'll be William Boyvert. He will be back on the lead lap as soon as we get back to the green flag. So it'll be 2 drivers on the lead lap when we go, and it'll be the 2 drivers on row 1, Cameron Stone, and most likely Boyvert if he doesn't lose anything on pit road. Because although he is a lap down, there's still positions to be lost, since there are just about 4 cars on 1 lap down, along with Boyvert, Hickson-Ball, Petrucco, Cody Bird, and Cameron Caldwell, until you get to Wayne Grassy, who's 2 laps down. So still positions to fight between those guys a lap down. I really can't believe we're talking about this so early in the race already. However, still unbelievable situation here, as now the 47 will go around, and I think the general consensus here, Andre, once again, dip down pit road, get those 4 tires and fuel. That long run really stressed a lot of these cars out.
Absolutely, and it's kind of funny seeing Cameron Stone being the lone car down the pit road, and it's not due to strategy. It's because he's the only one allowed to pit this lap, so just a wild sight to see. You don't expect to see it. And the other thing, too, is that now he's got to be a little bit nervous in the fact that if he makes a mistake, if he throws this away, that's going to be the worst feeling on planet Earth. He's got to keep that car clean and bring it home, because if he wrecks and DNFs after this, man, I don't think we'll ever hear the end of it from him. His radio chatter is going to be something. So, Cameron Stone making his way down pit road.
It's going to be the sole driver down pit road, apart from some of the drivers who've had damage. Of course, Jonathan Delaney, Preston McRae, those drivers who had all that damage still down there, getting their service with their pit crew. But Cameron Stone going to be the only one getting 4 tires and fuel this time around. The rest of the field will follow through after him. There they go. The 47 and the rest of those guys will head down pit road. Once again, we'll bring Cameron Stone down to the broadcast booth, and we got another interview to see him on how he feels lapping the entire field. And Cameron Stone, welcome to the 3Y TV booth. You got a copy with us? And Cameron, this is Kenneth Bueno in the 3Y TV booth. You got a copy?
Yes, sir.
Cameron, I think me and Andre were just talking about this shortly before the stage. You have pulled the Hickson bar. You've lapped the entire field. But this time, before the end of stage number 2, just tell us what your approach is now going into the rest of this race in stage 3 to lap 500.
Well, it's just like at the start of stage 2. We're just gonna try to keep it clean, get a good start here, and pull off. Like I said earlier, short run, some of these guys can keep up, but long run, we just pull off. So hopefully, we get a couple long runs here. We can lap them again.
And it has really worked on all cylinders. And you said earlier in the stage 1 interview that your car was rolling the bottom well, and of course you were working that top phenomenally. But how will that adaptability change? Do you think it will, or you just think it'll be smooth sailing with your race car all the way through?
Well, I'm hoping it's smooth sailing. You know, I mean, I definitely don't want anything to change these last 250 laps here. So, just trying to keep status quo for the rest of the race, and get these points and lock ourselves in next week.
All right, Cameron. Well, we wish you luck. I know you're going to take the green flag soon, so we wish you luck here. And I know possibly that restart will be in your favor, of course, but we wish you luck anyway.
Thank you, sir.
Cameron Stone out of the booth, and with that, the pace truck will come down a pit road, this time with the 47 of William Boyver being the only driver on the lead lap. Green flag is back out on lap 257, and again, once again, a beautiful start for that 57 Ford Mustang. Hicksonball will follow through, but he is sitting third right now, one lap down. You have to look all the way back, a couple of cars back, as the 47 is in a hornet's nest right now with a lot of lap cars.
Hornet's nest is a great way to describe it. You got cars on your left, on your right, in front of you, behind you, and it's a wild pack to try to navigate, especially at a track like this. And that's kind of the give and take nature of the Lucky Dog. You get to get back on the lead lap, but you're starting at the tail end of the field. You got to work your way through all these guys if you want to make the most of it. Looking back up front, look at that. Hicksonbach to the bottom of the leader trying to unlap himself. This is the first time we've seen anybody be able to make a pass on Cameron Stone. And it would appear as they make their way through 1 and 2, they're going to be able to complete that pass. Bryson Hicksonbach now back on the lead lap. Cameron Stone did mention on the short run, a lot of these guys can keep up with him, or maybe even they're faster. But now the question is, as this run goes on, is Cameron Stone going to be able to get that lap back? Is he going to be able to get in front of him when Hicksonbach is no longer in traffic? Because that's the thing. When Hicksonbach got lapped, he was battling. He was in traffic. He was in the thick of it. Now he's got clean air, and that could be the difference.
That's a great point you make. When you're in clean air versus when you have a lot of cars around you, it can really affect the way you drive your race car and the way you drive the track. And when you're in those clean air, you can really make the most out of your race car and your setup. You see the race summary right at the bottom left of your screen, lap 261, now just about lap 262 of the 500. We've had 7 cautions, just about the average pace. So it looks to be about 127 miles per hour and 14.9 seconds. And back to the conversation that I said, how quickly you can get around this track at Bristol Motor Speedway, it still stands true. All the laps going by very, very quickly. The fastest lap was actually set by the driver who just unlapped himself. Bryson Hicksonbach has the fastest lap so far in this race. Surprised, since you would think it would be the race leader who's dominated this entire race, but it is Hicksonbach at the fastest of this field. He now unlaps himself, so he will be just about 13 seconds back, and he's actually gained a lot on the leader, so possibly could continue his stride.
You know, I gotta wonder if Hicksonbach's maybe been laying back. He knows his teammate basically has to win this race to move on to the next gap of the playoffs, the next round of the playoffs, and so maybe he's just taking it easy, and now, okay, Cameron Stone's lapped just about the whole field. He's pretty secure in his teammate moving on, and now it's time to put the pedal to the metal, which is exactly what he's done, is he's now gaining on the underlapped car there, Wayne Grassy. Speaking of Wayne Grassy, what a heartbreak for him, running up front for the majority of the early portion of the race, and then getting caught up in that pile up there on the backstretch. And it seems like his car just hasn't been the same ever since. He's been off pace. The damage doesn't look too bad, but it does appear to be holding him up quite a bit as he is just limping that thing around the track, trying to salvage as many points as he can. And it's a valiant effort. You know, if something happens to these guys in front of them, that's going to be the difference. You know, staying out, no matter if you're on pace or not, can sometimes be the difference that gets you those points. So Hicksonbach now on the bumper of Josh Coppernall, moving to the bottom, and man, that car is just planted to the bottom. We're seeing him carry a lot more momentum than we've seen many other drivers carry down low. Usually that top line gets those runs right onto the straightaway, and they'll kind of help you play the defense, but not against Hicksonbach. He is on a charge, working his way through these lap cars, maybe trying to get to the back of his teammate once again, but this time on the lead lap.
Yeah, and back to teammates. Hicksonbach probably happy to see his teammate rather than anyone else locked into the round of 12, and he'd probably be working with his teammate rather than anyone else in the track, or rather than anyone else in this field. And now you're taking a look. This is Rich Petrucco in the 27. Normally, you'd probably see that 27 and the 47 in tow together on the lead lap, but this time Petrucco is going to try to unlap himself, sitting 4th right now. He's got a little bit of gap to Cameron Stone, and surprisingly, it is relatively close. So Rich Petrucco can possibly be the 4th car on the lead lap and unlap himself in the process. And actually, with the 47 following suit, it's closing the gap between them two as well.
Right, and you know, there's a lot of mind games going on too. We see Cameron Stone maybe not quite running the same pace he was running in the last stage. So maybe he knows he's got the pace. He knows he pretty much has this in the bag if he cannot wreck. And if he just holds back a little bit, if he's not going quite as fast, he's not going to be in traffic as often. He's not going to have that closing rate to the lap cars. And it's going to be a little bit safer maybe just to lay off the throttle and take it easy if you know you've got that pace you can fall back on. So maybe that's what he's doing, or perhaps some of these guys have found something late into this race that could be what they needed to get the edge. So right now we're looking at the gap between the 27 and the 57, and it's not that much. I mean, he could unlap himself theoretically. The lap times seem to be pretty similar. I don't think the 27's closing the gap massively, but he is keeping pace. He's not falling back. And so if lap traffic comes along and 57 finds himself in a swarm of cars, Petrucco could be there to capitalize on that and unlap himself.
Yeah, and I think at this situation, Andre, it is the most interesting that we've seen all race long, because normally through the first two stages we saw a good chunk of the drivers on the lead lap, lots of drivers under the lead lap, but those drivers in fact were drivers who have a lot of damage, drivers who are fairly off the pace, and really don't have as much power under the hood due to that damage that has affected their run significantly. But the thing now with Cameron Stone lapping the entire field, it's now at least showing the prowess of some of these other drivers that have been in this top 5, because regardless of what you say about them, regardless of how they have been quick, and although they're a lap down right now, although they were all a lap down at one point under stage 2 break, they can climb themselves all the way back up. And although Petrucco hasn't really shown as much, he's gotten close to Cameron Stone, but it hasn't really been enough. Now it's starting to pay off for that 27 as he's right to the back bumper. I think it's the closest they've really been all race long, apart from the initial restart on the green flag on lap 1. Actually, the second restart too, as he is really snappy loose. I think just trying to push his car to get around the 57, but in turn has lost him a lot of time in the process.
That's how it goes, man. You get the leader in your sights, you know you can unlap yourself, and you start to push the car just that little bit more. And when you do that, that's when you start to kind of go beyond the limits of the car. These stock cars, they are finicky, you know, a little bit too much throttle input, a little bit too much steering input, and you're going to be going the wrong way really fast. So just a little bit too much throttle coming out of the corner could have been what did it for him, trying to get that tense, trying to get that edge on the 57. And additionally, maybe the 57's kind of got on it now. You know, he knows, okay, well, I fell back a little bit. I was taking it easy. I was right there with the 27. I've afforded myself the ability to kind of step on the gas now and start building that gap back up. So maybe a bit of a yo-yo strategy. Fall back, go ahead, fall back, go ahead. And if he does that, he might avoid being in traffic quite as much as he was earlier in stage 2.
I like
the 27 loose into the wall.
Oh boy, Rich Petrucco just had a hit to the outside wall, and that's going to allow Boivert to possibly get by. You saw the crinkle there to the rear end, but it has crinkled a little bit more. Here's an extra look and just an in-depth look at what really happened to that 27 machine. This was off the corner, actually really reminiscent of a situation that happened earlier in this race. Instead of getting loose in the entrance of the corner, he really got loose in the middle, and then it really sent him up the outside wall. Now he's lost that spot there to William Boivert. It's still one lap down, so his charges to get back on this lead lap have really gone downhill ever since. And meanwhile, you're on board with Hixenbaugh. This is the gap between himself and the 47, and now just about 10 seconds, 10.2 seconds, and closing at that.
Yeah, not very far at all. He is running faster lap times. You can see about a tenth faster last time around for Bryson Hixenbaugh with a 10.1 second gap, slowly reeling him in. And while this is going on, I've noticed Hixenbaugh is not quite gaining on Cameron Stone as much as he was before. The run kind of stalled out around a 12-second gap roundabout. So maybe Cameron Stone getting that long run set up to feel the way he wants it to feel, just like you mentioned earlier. This really is a long run car, and now he's able to kind of stall out that run that his teammate had, trying to get back up to him on the lead lap. But a scary sight for Cameron Stone right now as lap cars go too wide in front of him. That's Dave Fugue and Zach Probst battling it out for their own positions. Meanwhile, Cameron Stone just trying to bring it home safely. I think he's going to ride behind him until they get that sorted out and say, hey, you guys do you. I'll be here when you get it figured out to get around you, you know. So they get it single file, and now to the bottom goes Cameron Stone. Probst came on the radio, said, go around me. Very courteous. It's what you like to see. And now just a couple more lap cars ahead of him to try and conquer.
And Cameron Stone gave him the thank you along with that pass. But you just saw on that onboard, it was a pure example of what you just said, Andre, in real time, that when they're going too wide, just kind of whoa it down a little bit, wait till they go single file, and then get around them at that point. And that's really happened for Cameron Stone. You saw him let off a little bit on the straightaway. Then as soon as Dave Fugue got by, he got by the 162 approach, so was able to get around Dave Fugue. Now back around Drumhiller, so that moves 2 cars, actually 1 car now, 4 laps down. It was Drumhiller at the time, but now is recycled to 5 laps down. So Drumhiller will have to fight with Grassy and Durham for the spot 8th, 9th, and 10th. Those are all drivers 5 laps down. Dave Fugue, however, is 8 laps down. Probst is 3 laps down. And the only 2 drivers that are 1 lap down are Rich Petrucco, that we just mentioned, right behind the 47 of Boyvert, and Cody Bird in the 64. Haven't really talked much about Cody Bird, really. And we saw his performance early in this race. We saw him creep up to 2nd earlier in the run. He's fallen back ever since. He had a scary moment down to the bottom, I believe, and had a really close call there early in this race. But if you're Cody Bird right now, you're sitting 1 lap down, you're in the top 5. Is it really just a time to stay comfortable and stay smooth and secure a top 5 near the end of this race?
I'm not sure it's time to stay comfortable, but it is definitely time to stay calm. He's in the top 5. He's got to stay collected. But the thing is, right now, looking at this realistically, Cameron Stone only has a couple cars that he can feasibly lap. Now, he's probably about to lap Bryson Dixon. That's going to put him 1 lap down and leave Boyver to be the only car that remains on the lead lap aside from the leader. So that means if Cody Bird could weasel his way into that lucky dog position, there's not a very high likelihood of losing it. There's nobody else for Cameron Stone to lap to take it away. So maybe it's time for Cody Bird to step on the throttle, try and push that car, and maybe catch up to his teammate in that 63 machine, get that lucky dog position, and then when the restart rolls around, pretty much secure himself a top 5 by restarting on the lead lap.
And back to development, we were just talking about how Hicksonball was able to gap himself to the race leader. I saw them 2 together on the racetrack, but I thought he might have got back to the lead lap, but the case stands that he just got back 1 lap down. So the 63 will have to fight back and try to unlap himself once again. And that was the situation, Andre. On the 57 was just kind of taking it easy through that first stage, and for the first stage of the run. And now that it's really settled in, he's going to start to press the car a little bit more and be a little bit faster, and is able to lap the rest of the guys nonetheless. And he's now growing the lead to Boyver just about 8.3 seconds. So it is slowly catching up to 15, where he'll be right to the back bumper of that 47. And once again, he'll lap the entire field through this final portion all the way to lap number 500. We just approached the 200 lap to go mark, and at a track so small, at a venue that really looks very large on camera shot through these cars, and of course with the stadium-like build that this track has, got to be a lot of noises going around the racetrack, so we'll hear all those roaring engines and all that horsepower as we go crank it up on 3Y TV. And those were all the sounds here at Bristol Motor Speedway, and you saw just how a bunch of these drivers are managing the track in their different ways. Right now, looking back to second place, William Boyvert, who has now fallen to 11.8 seconds to the race leader in Cameron Stone. And Rich Petrucco was able to get back around, but Petrucco in turn is currently sitting in fourth. Hixenbaugh just a little bit further up this grid. Right now currently sitting 1 lap down. But again, Andre, Cameron Stone possibly going to lap the entire field once more under this green flag run. And really with the long green flag runs, Andre, do you think there'll be possibly more of a split now that these drivers will be probably forced to go down pit road through this run if we don't get a yellow? Or you think maybe that could really determine how these drivers can get around Cameron Stone or possibly gain more position in the process?
Well, normally at a track like Bristol, I'd say, yeah, there's going to be a lot of strategy. Short pitting and tire strategy means a lot at a track where your lap times can fall so drastically as the tires begin to wear. But at the same time, what kind of strategy accounts for somebody lapping the field? What can you do at that point? You're kind of cornered in, and there's not much you can do other than just come down pit road for your routine stop and just hope that the 57 blows a gasket or something at this point. So you're going to see some strategy. I'm just not sure it's going to do a whole lot at this point.
Yeah, that is true, especially when you're relating it to the race leader. It's almost more impactful when you're talking about the drivers behind, most notably Petrucco. If he wants to gain a spot on Hixenbaugh, he can do so under that strategy. Boyver can possibly do something to maybe decrease the gap between himself and Cameron Stone and soften that blow. I'm looking more at the drivers 8th, 9th, and 10th, who are currently sitting 6 laps down. Those drivers are all within grasp for position for 8th, 9th, and 10th. So they are 6 laps down, but they're still fighting for spots on the racetrack. So that strategy in turn can change that entire order and possibly allow them to get some of their laps back, maybe go 4 laps down, maybe go to 3, 2, maybe even 1 under a strategy. Or maybe if Cameron Stone has an issue down pit road, it could be a whole different situation. But now you see the race leader there, the back bumper of the 47 in second place. Once again, about to lap the entire field.
4th place has now gone 2 laps down. 3rd place, Hixenbaugh 1 lap down. And the 47 machine about to go 1 lap down again. And that is going to put the entire field at least 1 lap down. So smooth sailing for Cameron Stone. He's just got to keep it clean. Keep it pretty much smooth. Don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything drastic. If he can do that, he's going to bring it home in P1. But again, it's got to be nerve-wracking for him because you don't want to be the guy who lapped the field and then threw it away. So he's going to be driving kind of cautiously, I'm sure, as he's on the bottom of the 47. He does get him clear. He's going to slide up. Not quite all the way, but he is going to get clear of him. And now, that's it. That's the whole field a lap down, Ken.
Just an update on Joseph Lester in the 9 car. He has withdrew from this race, so he's also out of the race along with Daniel Fields and a couple other drivers who also disconnected from the session. So they are now out of this race. Actually, Joseph Lester joins Daniel Fields as the only drivers to be completely out of this race and out of the session. Some of the other drivers who are way laps down, such like Preston McRae, Alex Princeton, Jonathan Delaney, they are still in this race. However, just hundreds of laps down at this point, and they're really just staying on pit road right now. And their races are pretty much definitively over, although they really have not disconnected whatsoever. And they'll get their points for wherever places they finish. And on board with your race leader, and that matte black car sure does look nice under the lights in the dark track here at Bristol Motor Speedway. You can see the contrasting colors, Andre. In some ways, I feel like this track kind of looks like a black and white screen because you see the black walls around this track, and then the light gray and the whitish concrete surface that you have on this racetrack. And really, there's not many contrasting colors other than black and white and gray. So it kind of looks a little nice to see Cameron Stone's car kind of fit in with the scenery.
Well, I should hope the track's not any color other than black or white or gray. That'd be a little concerning if it was like red or blue. But yeah, I mean,
more the wall.
This is definitely, yeah, that's true. That's true. Charlotte's got those bright yellow walls, and Darlington's got the white and the red. The black, yeah, you don't see too many black walls at these tracks. But I tell you what, Cameron's car kind of just blends in with it. It's almost hard to see him on this TV3 cam when he gets it right up against it. A lot of dark schemes in the field tonight. Wayne Grassy now going another lap down there on the bottom, driving that Pennzoil number 7 machine. He's been driving that same scheme all season long. It's a great scheme. But now Cameron Stone coming up on his teammate Cody Bird, who earlier in the race, we mentioned he showed a lot of promise. He was running second, had a great short run setup, but unfortunately for him, that strategy has just not played into his favor. Usually at a track like Bristol, you plan for the short runs. You plan to accommodate the obscene amount of cautions you expect to see. But tonight, we've had a lot of green flag runs. We've had runs that have gone, beyond 50, 60 laps. So these short run setups just have not done him any favors, which is a shame because he needs to have that good run to get into the next round of the playoffs. And right now, it's going to be close in points. So he's definitely given it everything he's got, but it just might not be enough.
Yeah, no, once again, back to the conversation of playoff racing. And since this is an elimination race, we'll have 4 drivers be cut out of this championship battle when we get to the round of 12 next week at Las Vegas. So we have to make a trip all the way to the West Coast to go to the Sin City and get ready for that over there. So that'll be a lot of fun, but obviously still a lot of racing to go as Cameron Stone gets by the 04 of Dave Fugue, and so many cars is still a lap down. It is just not much really to discuss at this point, apart from some other battles. But at this point, just so many drivers are not very close on the racetrack. We don't have a lot of battling. We don't have a lot of tangos. We don't see a lot of drivers fighting for position. Actually, I think I might have just stand corrected there. Jack Durham just got around Randy Drumhiller for 8th. And those 2 drivers are 7 laps down, so they are fighting for position. That seems to be one of the closest battles on the racetrack. But other than that, Andre, it has really been separation all throughout.
Absolutely, a lot of separation, even between laps. It's not like we have 8 or 9 cars that are 1 lap down. We've got 2 cars that are a lap down. We've got 1 car that's 2 laps down. We got 1 car that's 3 laps down. We got a handful of cars 5 laps down. A lot of separation, and I think a lot of that comes down to setups. Obviously, this is an open setup league, and that's what you see. And I honestly, I think that's really interesting because this simulator, as realistic as it is, you're never quite going to get 100% realistic car physics and mechanics and things like that. But as close as they've gotten it, these guys can do some crazy things with these setups, and real-life setup knowledge does carry over into this simulator. Guys like Cameron Stone, I know for a fact Cameron Stone has a lot of real-life car knowledge. He knows how to set up a car. He's raced street stocks in real life. Bryson Hicksenbaugh, he spent a lot of time studying setups for real cars and in the simulator. And these guys, they can make these setups and they can really throw a wrench at them. And it's just crazy to see how important the setup is. And it really is exemplified over the course of these long races. We got 500 laps. That's 500 laps for these cars to kind of get separated and run their race and run their pace. And 1/2 of a second difference per lap over 500 laps grows to be this massive gap that we've seen so far. So just kind of interesting to see what these guys can do with these setups.
And setup building is really key at series like this where everything is open setup, and really the possibilities are limitless for these cars. And again, back to the conversation of how wonderful this simulation is and how great it has really made its impact into the motorsport community. There are a batch of drivers within iRacing that either are people just sharing that passion for motorsports and want to take that part of driving without dealing with the expenses, without dealing with everything in real life. If the logistics are not there for them, they can go on the racetrack virtually on the iRacing service and really make a realistic run, go into leagues, have runs of their own, get some wins along the way, and battle with a lot of drivers that in some ways could be many skills, can be higher skilled than you, and you can, work with them and drive with them. And there are so many experiences that are offered here on the iRacing platform. And also the batch of a lot of real life drivers who take their hand at iRacing, drivers who learn from iRacing, drivers who practice on iRacing for the real life thing. There are so many tracks and so many cars that you can put together on this service that it really can offer a bunch of opportunities for you to learn how different cars handle, how they are really replicated on the sim as opposed to how they are in real life, and all the venues that you're able to visit. So it really allows for leagues like this where you can go to every single NASCAR Cup Series track. And impressive how this simulation has been able to do that. And of course, with the open setups, drivers learning from those setups, and they learn how to manage cars possibly in real life. They can take on the real life racing side of things, work on their setups there. I know a handful of drivers who are real life drivers, maybe in go-karts, in Legends. Some of them drive dirt cars, some of them drive dirt go-karts at that. They learn from iRacing and they practice on iRacing and they take their hand at racing on this simulation. So really a lot of things that this service can offer, and how great the guys at iRacing and Steve Myers have done to this service ever since its inception back in 2008. So phenomenal job. But back to the race at hand. It is relatively the same between everyone now, apart from Durham staying 7 laps down. Drumheller has fallen to 8 laps down and again has lost a position to Wayne Grassy in the 7 machine. And that seems to be another battle that is developing. And then Christopher Hamann currently sitting 5 laps down. Cody Bird 3 laps down. Rich Petrucco about 2 laps down. And then the only drivers 1 lap down that are fighting for position but are nowhere near each other right now on the racetrack, Boyver and Hicksonball.
Cameron Stone putting the number 3, Brian Mabry another lap down as he continues his hunt through the field. Maybe, possibly going to outdo Bryson Hicksonbaugh, try to put the whole field 2 laps down. He's got a ways to go. Hicksonbaugh quite a ways ahead of him, and Boyver ahead of Hicksonbaugh even. So he's got a ways to go, but he's got the time to do it. We're currently sitting on lap 352 out of 500, so a little bit of distance left in this race, and it seems like a little bit of pit stop strategy beginning. We got a few cars coming down pit road or making their way out of pit road. I couldn't quite tell. It's confusing with these double pit lanes here at Bristol, but the 27, Rich Petrucco, he's definitely diving it down on the pit lane. So going to be interesting. Does Cameron Stone bother trying to short stop and come in early, or does he stay out? Because why not, you know?
That's a great question. And now that he's lapped everybody down, and it is going to be interesting to see when and where he goes down pit road. Obviously, Rich Petrucco has just made his trip down, so he's one of the drivers who have started that pit road cycle. Randy Drumheller is also down there as well. I got a couple of drivers who have still yet to pit. Wayne Grassy actually has extra damage, Andre. I'm not sure whether that was developed recently or not, but he has no front bumper on the racetrack right now.
Yeah, last time we looked at him, I was talking about his paint scheme, and he still had that front splitter. Now it is completely gone, so we're not entirely sure what happened. Maybe an impact to that inside retaining wall, or maybe just rear-ended somebody a little bit too hard. Another thing to keep a note, too, is the damage isn't always consistent for the spectator view, so maybe that damage is a little bit more than what he really has, but so far just not looking good for that 7 machine. Going back to the pit strategy, the more I think about it, the more I think Cameron Stone, the smartest choice for him is to stay out, because he's got a lap on everybody. It's not like he's going to lose that by staying out on all tires, but if he comes down pit road before some of these other guys, and they actually get ahead of him on the track, and then a caution comes out, that throws a wrench in everything. That completely changes the game. So I think the best way for him to avoid that is just to stay out until he physically can't anymore. The tires won't hold or the gas runs out. But until then, just make his way around the track. Jack Durham letting him go on the bottom, getting off the throttle, making space for the leader. Again, Jack Durham, a little bit of issues earlier on in the race, and he's just kind of making laps, trying to salvage the points he can. But riding on board now, I believe that's the 47 of Boyver. He is making his way through the turn, and again, he's still diamonding those corners. You can see him entering high, and then just kind of ripping his way a lane or two down on the exit. So not too many other drivers following that line, but a gaggle of cars for Cameron Stone as we go on board. 2 by 2 right in front of him. That's his teammate Bryson Hicksonbaugh, under fire of going 2 laps down now. And right now, Cameron Stone's got to figure out, how do I safely get around these guys?
This is the same situation that Cameron Stone was in while getting around Dave Fugue and Zach Probst, but meanwhile they do go single file, so he'll get by the 7 and go 2 laps down over Bryson Hicksonbaugh. So he'll be 2 laps down now and 1 more driver to put the rest of the field just about 2 or more laps down, which I don't think we have seen at all. But at a short track like this, it is bound to happen. You see the distance between the 47 and the 57. They are relatively close. Gonna put that 47 2 laps down, and as the pit cycle continues to progress, we have yet to see any of these drivers go down pit road, at least within this top 4 or 5, other than Rich Petrucco, who's now into the top 5. I saw Dave Fugue down pit road. I saw a couple of the drivers down pit road as well. Christopher Hamann in that group. You see him there getting to the inside of the 47 and possibly going to get around Cameron Stone with that fresh rubber. But we're going to get around now, and at this point, 2 laps down on the rest of this field, and he's not doing the Hicksonball anymore. Now it's his own thing, I guess. Passing the Stone.
Yeah, I think the rest of the field is going to see him as a bit of a kidney stone after this performance, because that's got to be frustrating, man, to not even be in the ballpark on the setup. I mean, this is incredible. I don't even know what to say about this. There are no words. We saw Bryson Hicksonbaugh lap the entire field. at Darlington, and we were flabbergasted. We were blown away by that. We thought, man, we're never going to see anything like that again. And now Cameron Stone has not only lapped the entire field, but he did it twice before the end of the race. Just a baffling performance. I don't know what other word to describe it, but definitely one that Cameron Stone is going to look back on probably years from now and say, hey, check out what I did.
This is definitely going to be in the Galaxy Cup Series history books from now on. And remember, both of those events happened in the playoffs, and both of those events have happened with two high side cars. So high side racing, really, that team has been so dominant, and I think their setups are really triumph above a lot of these other cars in these races, and they've done such a phenomenal job. But obviously, you can't discredit anybody else in this top five. Of course, William Boyver with his consistent run and only his second race in the Galaxy Cup Series. We really didn't talk about this, Andre. And really, when you're looking at him on the racetrack, it doesn't feel like he's a second-time driver in the series. It doesn't feel like this is a second start. It feels like he's been here for a while. It feels like he knows how to get around these drivers. He knows what it's like to drive around them, and it's very impressive considering that a rookie in this series is doing so well. And between last week and this race on the short tracks, he has been really successful.
Yeah, you can't say enough about Boyver. I mean, a rookie to the league, showing up last week, claiming a podium position, and now on track to do the same thing again this week. You know, he's never raced around these guys. He doesn't know their racecraft or their style, but it's like you said, the way he maneuvers that car, the way he drives, it's like he does know them. And I think that says a lot about his ability to adapt, his ability to read the cars in front of him, to watch what that car is doing and know how to accurately respond to that. So, fantastic showing by Boyver, and I'm really excited to see what he does going forward in the league because, you know, he's going to get picked up by teams, right? I mean, when you perform like this out the gate, you're catching people's attention. And the better team you're on, the better setups you're going to get. And when he's got setups that are comparable to Cameron Stone's, now that is going to be a rivalry that I look forward to.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be something to look forward to in a bright future ahead for that 47 of William Boyver. But speaking of which, he is down pit road. Hickson Ball also made his trip down pit road. He has lost a spot to Rich Petrucco, and the 63 has just merged back on the racetrack. So Boyver will be taking his service right now. I believe Cody Bird also signaled. He said pitting this time. So he is also making his trip down to the pit lane, and he will be getting his service as well, and still trying to make his way around the single pit lane that is used here at Bristol Motor Speedway, just like they do in the real-life NASCAR Cup Series. So the only driver we really haven't seen go down pit road is really the race leader, 57 of Cameron Stone. And the question still stands. He's now 4 laps ahead of the rest of this field. I think now, I don't really think it matters when he pits. It's just a matter of when he does, and we'll just see how he does.
Absolutely. It's not a matter of needing to pit right away. It's a matter of making sure that if a caution were to come out right now, he's not trapped on pit road, losing all of that time that he had gained on the rest of the field. So right now, he's going to pull off the track, make his way down this long pit road. On the iRacing service, you have to enter the pit road on the backstretch, go down the backstretch straight away, even if you're in the number 1 pit stall, and then work your way around turns 3 and 4 into the front stretch pit road, and then finally navigate to your pit stall. So really, even though it's one of the shortest tracks in the NASCAR circuit, on this service, it is one of the longest pit roads. So you got to think, too, that is a bit of a challenge for a lot of these guys to not speed. You know, a lot of these guys struggle not to speed. Cameron Stone struggles not to speed on the shorter pit roads, and now he's got to keep a light foot through not 1 but 2 pit roads. So he's going to slide it into his stall, barely crawling into the stall. There was no urgency. There was no locking up of the brakes. It was like he pulled into a parking lot at Walmart right there, because that's pretty much all he needed to do. But right now, the camera focuses in on the 27, Rich Petrucco, as he is currently 1 lap down according to the scoring and timing. Hickson Baugh as well. Cameron Stone now making his way back out onto the track, and that should be pretty much where it cycles out.
So he'll be 1 lap ahead of Rich Petrucco, and he got out just in time for the moment where he has those fresh tires, and he's able to build the gap all the way back up and possibly build that gap up to 2 laps down for the 27 of Rich Petrucco. William Boyver, however, has fallen back to 4th, but that leaves now just 3 drivers, just 1 lap down. So it's Petrucco, Hickson Baugh, and Boyver, all of them fairly separated within each other. So and not much to really contend, at least for position. I think the closest on the track is Boyver and Hicksonball, and then Petrucco is in a gaggle of cars and a lot of lap down cars with Kevin Steele at 217 of Durham. Right now, you're looking at Christopher Hammond, currently sitting in the top 5, and what an effort that is for the 17. And the amount of damage he has on that race car has been able to capitalize on a lot of the mistakes that the other drivers have made and the other cautions that have been caused by a lot of these drivers. But Hammond, although with all that damage and it's looking like a modified out there, he's in this top 5 and could gain this through the rest of this race up until the end.
And you look at his last lap posted, it's only a 15.5. Now, that's not a blazing lap time by any means, but to run a 15.5 with a car that's that beat up, especially on the front end, where it's affecting your aero really bad, giving you that aero push, I gotta say, a 15.5, you can't ask for anything much better, especially, I mean, look at Cody Bird, that's the 6th place car. Last time around, he ran a 15.7, so 2/10 slower than the damaged machine of the number 17. So, I mean, for what it's worth, he's putting in a wonderful effort, and you know, if the cards had fallen a little bit differently, if he hadn't acquired that damage, if he had stayed clear of those incidents early on, who knows? He might have had something for the leaders late in this race.
Yeah, and that could really stand true as Hammond continuing to stay within this top 5. He is currently 5 laps down, which puts him in contention for position with Cody Bird and Zach Probst. And you see Zach Probst right now on your screen sitting 7th. He has a relatively clean race car, and you saw him go a lap down and then go back to the lead lap just a while back, and he's rallied his way back. But ever since Cameron Stone has really put the torch to a lot of these drivers, it is been all downhill for a lot of these drivers to stay on the lead lap. And of course, he has now just gone 6 laps down, but nonetheless, 7th place and a top 10 will really work well out for him and could really help him going into the next round of 12. Really, at this point, I don't think for a lot of these drivers it's more about the win. I think right now it's just more about keeping yourself in this top 5 or top 10. Try to gain as much as you can, but have those points to your advantage to the point where you can go into the round of 12 with a good amount of points to your name.
You know, Benny Parsons once said, you can win a championship on top 10s alone. Now, that's in a full field of 40 cars. Our field fluctuates a little bit, but it holds true. What he meant by that wasn't necessarily, oh, you could finish 10th every weekend and win the championship. What he meant was, if you're consistent and you're constantly running up front, you don't necessarily need to be the guy that's lapping the field twice every race. You just need to be up there. And if the cards fall in your favor, you might get the championship. I mean, look at the Trucks Championship last year. I think it was Matt Crafton who won the championship without even getting a win. So definitely, I mean, consistency is a big thing, and that's why you see a lot of these guys with damage like the 17 or like the number 7, that their car is not on pace. They know they're not going to challenge for the lead, but what they're doing is they're assuring that they're going to get the points from the cars ahead of them should they have any issues. If somebody pulls off the track right now with 106 laps left in the race, well, that's 106 laps to get that position back and to get ahead of them and get those points. So, you know, tenacity is something that always shows through at these short tracks, and it means a lot at a track like this, especially when we're at a venue where you're going to see a lot of carnage. You're going to see a lot of accidents. So even if your car's beat up, it's not on pace, the likelihood of the guy ahead of you getting involved in something is a little bit higher here than, let's say, Auto Club or Michigan. So these guys are going to stay out. They're going to gather every point that they can, even if the car is not quite with them, not quite there. And they're going to try and push through to the next round. And, you know, we mentioned at the start of the broadcast, not too many points changing hands. Of our 21-car field, I believe 16 of them were playoff drivers. So that doesn't really leave a lot of room for these points to change hands. But with Cameron Stone dominating this race, with him more than likely getting the win, not to jinx him by any means, that locks him in, and that does change up the playoff picture quite a bit, a little bit more than we expected.
Definitely not changing as much, and especially when you have all those playoff drivers there, you really don't have a mix of non-playoff drivers. So let's say if you lose a couple of spots, you're losing maybe a couple of points depending on the position, but there's not as many non-playoff drivers to go in the mix and possibly shake up the points even more. So we probably won't see as much development. Of course, we still will see elimination. We still will see drivers cut to the bubble as a yellow flag comes out at 401. Very unexpected yellow at the moment, and we're going to take a look and see who that might be. It's Petrucco in the 27.
Oh, man, Petrucco. one of the faster cars we've seen tonight, and just right into that inside wall. We've seen that happen a couple times tonight, man. They just start sliding towards that inside retaining wall, and not much they can really do to recover it. But we're on board now with this gyro cam. You're gonna see coming through the corner, the weight is just gonna shift. You can see him get on the counter steering right on entry, so he knew right then that the car was starting to slide, and he could probably feel that. But again, feeling the car sliding and being able to exactly save it is two very different matters. So unfortunate for Petrucco, but a very lucky break for Boyver, who's going to get the lucky dog position and once again be on the lead lap potentially. So, hey, who knows? Maybe he can get something figured out with that car, get the setup figured out, and maybe try and get up and challenge for that lead.
And Petrucco has been fighting a loose race car all night long, and we saw it already twice where he almost lost the car going into the corner, and then he had to tap in the wall a little bit early in this race when he was battling with Boyver for position, and when he slid up into the outside wall, now it seemed to have got the better of him. I think he might have had some damage through his front end. I think a little bit extra from that tap to the inside wall on the front straightaway, so he will have to probably go down pit road and get his service, and Hicksonball will be the lucky dog, so he will get back to the lead lap. However, Stone will be the only driver on pit road this time by. He'll be the sole driver as the rest of the field goes around, and as soon as they get around, now they're starting to enter pit road.
Yeah, these cars are finally allowed to pit, the lap down cars, and Boyver's going to get his lucky dog. He's going to go around the pace car, so they're getting everything sorted out. I'm curious to see this restart. How hard does Boyver push it? Does he try to get ahead? Because at this point, I think that's the only way to beat him. You know, get ahead of him on the restart, take away the clean air, and now looks like, is that Bryson Hicksonbaugh on the lead lap maybe?
Yeah, he was in second as soon as the yellow came out, so he went back to the lead lap, but I did not see him go down pit road, so he is still first. He will be first calculated on the score, and he led that lap, so no more Mr. Perfect for Cameron Stone to lead every single lap. Now Hicksonball has that opportunity to go down on pit road, so then Hicksonball will take his service, and it looked a little bit bizarre there since there were all the lap cars there down pit road, so Hicksonball will be there. Cameron Stone, of course, will stay out since he went down pit road. Boyver and the rest of those guys, a couple laps down, are now starting to make their ways out of pit road. It'll be Boyver, Petrucco, Hamann, since they're all separated by a couple of laps between each other. They will remain stagnant in their positions, and Cameron Stone will be at the head of this field. Andre, final 95 laps in this race. Are you expecting the same passing the Stone reference? Do you think we might be talking a little bit more about that as soon as the night goes on and until we get to the closing laps of this race? Or you think now that it's later in this race, driver's going to push a little more and that could breed a lot more yellows?
It's hard to predict anything at this point. I mean, you know, we know Cameron Stone has been very dominant. He's had the car to beat all night long. And the short runs, yeah, his car's not quite as good, so I think we might see a little bit of a competition there early on in the beginning of the run there. But as the run goes on, if we can get another long run, we're going to see exactly the domination we've seen all night long. But the green flag is out. Cameron Stone far and away. Nobody was even close to him on that restart. I'm not 100% sure what happened. They seemed a little bit jumbled up in accordion on that restart, because now yellow flag. Bryson Hicksonbaugh involved hard into the outside wall, Ken.
Bryson had a piece of that. He is now around and backwards on the racetrack, going to whip it back around. But a caution, as soon as I said it, that it could breed more yellows of all of these cars in a group. It was a very confusing restart. It all started with Brian Mabry getting into the side of the 30 machine, and then Hicksonbaugh really just nowhere to go. And then Drumhiller going back up the racetrack, spins the 63 around. And really one of the drivers that we saw that was very contentious to the race leader is now have a lot of damage to his race car to get fixed. This is an extra look. There's the contact with Mabry, then up into Hicksonbaugh as he was trying to avoid it, then back up into Hicksonbaugh, and then Hicksonbaugh gets sent around.
Yeah, tough break for Hicksonbaugh, one of the only cars that seem to be able to compete at times, especially on the short runs. But this is now going to put another car on the lead lap. So we got Bryson Hicksonbaugh was on the lead lap. He's probably going to lose that with the damage that he's got on this car. He's going to have to sit in the pits and get that repaired. But it looks like Boyver is now going to be on the lead lap as well. I thought he was lucky dog last caution. I was incorrect. Last I checked in on him, he was running P2. But I guess when I wasn't looking, Hicksonbaugh snuck up there. So It's going to be Boiver on the lead lap now, and then behind them, the next car back is going to be Rich Petrucco in P4, 2 laps back.
It's going to be interesting to see how they develop, at least through the rest of this race and within these final 100 laps or so. And you see Drumhiller and Hixenbaugh now down pit road. This will in turn allow Boivert, who is now on the lead lap, to go up to second, where he was at the previous restart that we had when we had that really long green flag run. There's Mabry, Wayne Grassy down pit road as well. Not sure why Grassy's down pit road, maybe to get some extra damage fixed. Durham is also down there as well. And also interesting, we saw Zach Probst up there, Andre, where he was running in the top 10. He was a couple laps down. He was sitting about 5 laps down. He went down pit road and has not gone out since. He's 22 laps down now in 12th.
Possibly a lot of damage to get fixed, or maybe something to tend to outside of the car. Who knows? But it was a rough night for him either way, man. He had a lot of speed early on, and like so many of these guys, just getting involved in things later down the line. But right now you're looking at Bryson Hixenbaugh making his way back out onto the track. Maybe not quite as much damage on that 63 machine as I expected to see. The way he hit the number 30 car, Drumhiller, I thought there was going to be a lot more damage. I mean, you could see the rear end of that car lift up off the ground. It was a hard impact, but not too much damage to that machine.
Yeah, might have had not as much to fix on that race car, but it will set him back. And the good news, though, for Hixenbaugh is that he's not a lap down anymore. He's on the lead lap, so nobody else will really pass him apart from Boiver and Cameron Stone, even though Cameron Stone was already at the head of this field. But Boiver will just gain 1 spot. Hixenbaugh would just lose 1 spot, but he'll still be on the lead lap. He'll have a chance to get back up and try to contend for second with that 47. But they've got a lot of drivers to get by, and it was a really awkward restart at that point with Cameron Stone at the head of this field, and I think he still will be. So we'll take the green flag with Cameron Stone at the head of this field and just a weird arrangement of lap cars.
Yeah, definitely weird arrangement. And last restart, it was kind of goofy from the start. Like I said, there was nobody really close to the leader, and they were kind of accordioned up. I think I seen a couple guys 3 wide there on that restart, so not sure what happened. Every once in a while, you see a restart that's just not quite kosher, and that happens. But right now, the green flag has come out, and there goes Cameron Stone, like he has so many times tonight, just building up nearly half a corner's worth of a gap to the car behind. That is the 17 machine, laps down. And now Hixenbaugh back down pit road.
Took his opportunity to go down pit road under the green flag. Really not sure what happened to that 63, but I was just about to mention how since these drivers on the lead lap, the worst part about it is that they have to get by all of these lap cars in order to get up to the race leader. But no, actually nothing really wrong with that 63. Maybe just damage to fix, not really sure. But went down pit road anyway. He is now 1 lap down, so that only puts 2 drivers on this lead lap. Boiver will be the second driver there as Cameron Stone continues to lead by about 2.6 seconds.
I tell you what, that is a shame for Bryson Hixenbaugh. He got back on the lead lap, kind of a lucky break. And now, after getting involved in that incident, I don't know if the damage was just, sometimes there's damage you can't see. Something could be bent underneath that chassis. One of the axles could be out of line, and that's going to make that thing a real pain to drive. So maybe Bryson Hixenbaugh was feeling that and decided, hey, probably better just to come down pit road, get this thing fixed up, bring it back out, and salvage what we can. So that's just sometimes the decisions you got to make. It's not always ideal what happens in these races, but hey, he can't really complain. He's won 13 races this season. One misfortunate race shouldn't be too much of a damper on his spirits, but man, Cameron Stone once again starting to pull away a little bit, but Boiver is one of the cars that he is not pulling away from. It was a 2-second gap. Now it's looking to be about a 1.6 second gap. So maybe on this short run, Boiver does have the preferred car.
Well, it seems to be the case a lot of times, and then it flips around on its head. It usually is just one driver in second. They catch up to the race leader, or at least they pull into the gap between themselves and the race leader. But then as soon as that long run kicks in, the time is not there for that second place car to catch up. And then Cameron Stone continues to stand tall from there on out, and he continues to grab his lead. At the moment, it's about 1.3 seconds between the two. So the 47 of Boivert still trying to work around that 17 of Christopher Hamann. He's had a struggle to get around him. I think that bottom line just really isn't effective for that 47. It really hasn't worked. So he's trying to go to the high side. He's trying to really make things work up there, but it's not really been enough to get by that 17. And that 17, although he's 3 laps down, he's really not letting him by at all.
No, and sometimes when you're going laps down, you play it a little bit more defensively. Sometimes you get out of the way, but sometimes you're thinking, hey, I've gone laps down. I'm just trying to stand my ground. I'm trying to get as many points as I can. It's your job. It's a race. It's your job to get around me. I have no obligation to let you go. That's kind of the Ryan Newman mindset, but right now, 47 getting around him on the bottom lane, it looks like he's going to be door to door going into the corner, probably going to get clear of him by the time they get out of this corner. And he is. So he's actually, right now, the gap from first to second, it is 1.0 seconds, now 0.9 seconds. So Boisvert really massively closing the gap to the leader. Taking it from 2 seconds to 1 second in just a few laps. So who knows? Maybe a tire pressure adjustment was made on that 47. Maybe he's got it feeling the way he wants it feeling. And if he could get a few short runs in a row and not let the long run, let that 57 sail away, he might have something.
And if he does, it'll be the first time that somebody has something for Cameron Stone all race long, really. And you see now the gap between them two. It's now fairly within range that at the point you can see the camera shots and you can see Cameron Stone and the 47 in the same picture. You're on board with the 47 at the moment. He has one driver to get around. And it's the driver that he has been entangled with all race long, is sitting third, 2 laps down though. Rich Petrucco, they have been at it all race long. They've had some phenomenal battles, and it's been fun watching them two around this half-mile racetrack. But at this point, if you're the 47 William Boisvert, your focus right now is just try to get by the 27 as quickly as possible. Just let him know that you want to get by, and since he's a couple laps down, maybe he'll oblige. But like the situation with Hammond, it was not as easy to get around, so possibly Petrucco is just going to stand his ground and going to try to do as best as he can to hold his line and stay where he has all race long, as now the gap is just about 1.2 seconds. Cameron Stone still leading with just less than 70 laps to go.
Yeah, it seemed like the fall off was pretty sudden and severe there. We were looking at the lap time differentials, and at one point, Boisvert ran a lap that was 0.3 faster than Cameron Stone, which is massive here. And then after that, immediately, Cameron Stone was 1/10 faster, 2/10 faster, 1/10 faster. So maybe that hot lap that Boisvert pulled off kind of pushed his tires, heated him up a little bit, pushed him to their limit. And now he's got to kind of back it off and let them cool down as the gap now begins to grow, like we've seen in these long runs so many times, back to 1.6 seconds now, almost 1.7. And I would say this is about the time we've seen Cam's car come to life every single time. It seems like we get about 15 or so laps into a run, and that's when he starts pulling away. So again, it's the story we've seen repeatedly all night long, and I know Cam is hoping for as few cautions as possible. Just keep it green to the end, let me pull away, create this gap. We're now on board. Let's go ahead and take a look. What kind of line is Cameron Stone running exactly? You can see he is right up against that outside wall, right where the black kind of tarmac is real rubbered up. Not quite as high as Boisvert. Boisvert runs about half a lane higher up, but Cameron just kind of running that consistent half a lane down from the wall. The gyro cam now showing the intensity of the banking, and in real life, the G-forces the driver's got to feel going through these turns is absolutely insane. And the lap time differentials, again, Cameron Stone 0.2 faster before, but now look at that, 15.5, 15.5. So Boisvert once again maintaining that gap. So his tires could have cooled off, and now they're ready to go, and he's back on the hunt.
And the different driving styles are prevalent, especially at a track like this. And you see Cameron Stone running a little bit lower on the racetrack than I anticipated. I think he kicked up a little higher in some points of this race. You see him now up to the wall, then kick back a little bit down. And it's kind of the same thing that the 47 is doing, and it's proving to be a very quick line. And I think Cameron Stone and the 47 have done a phenomenal job of maintaining that line and staying quick throughout the entire run, even when it's a short run or if it's a long run. They've both done a job of wheeling those race cars and keeping themselves consistent, because consistency matters at a track like this, and you're going 15 seconds around this racetrack. Any little mistake can hurt your time dramatically. Now there's just a bunch of cars between Boisvert and Cameron Stone, so now the gap is starting to increase once again. Again, that long run is playing favor to that 57 like it has been all race long, and really, it's been the talk of the town for this entire race. Here's a battle now between Petrucco and the 162 of Zach Probst. So Probst is now back on the racetrack, although he is 41 laps down and in P number 12, most likely where he's going to finish at the end of this race. But he gets by the 27 on those fresh tires, and Voiveur still hasn't really been able to get by.
Not quite, and that's kind of the problem being the second place car. When you get up on lap traffic, a lot of the cars that are getting lapped kind of feel like, hey, this is the leader, I don't want to screw up his night, and they let him go. And then the second place car comes along and they're like, hey, you're not the leader, I don't really care as much, so they kind of run a little bit more aggressive if you're not the leader. So that only allows the gap to grow even larger, which is definitely not what Voiveur wants to see, not what anybody wants to see. I mean, they've been watching Cameron Stone run away from them all night long, repeatedly, stage after stage, restart after restart. They're probably getting a little sick of it. So right now, Zach Probst running right behind the 63 machine Bryson Hicksonbaugh as the leader claims another victim, putting the number 30 Drumhiller another lap down, and to the high side is going to maneuver around the 7 car, Wayne Grassy, that heavily wounded machine, just limping around on the bottom best he can. And the gap continuing to grow at a pretty accelerated rate. It hovered around 1.6, but once it started to drop, now it is almost 6 seconds back to William Voiveur.
And as we approach lap 448, we're going to get to the 50 lap to go mark until the checkered flag of this race. And just an update about the happenings in the garage. Ever since Joseph Lester has disconnected, Jonathan Delaney, Cameron Caldwell, Alex Princeton, and Josh Coppernow have now followed suit. So they are officially out of this race, which leaves a couple drivers maybe to gain some spots out of it. Most notably, Kevin Steele, who's currently sitting on the racetrack. He's about 10 laps shy. He'd have to lap Coppernow 10 more times to get on this, to get back to the racetrack. Obviously, Coppernow still not on this racetrack, so it'll even them out. Kevin Steele will probably go all the way up to 13th, and that'll most likely where he'll finish. Since between about, I'd say, 10th on back, the separation in laps is just way too much, to the point where you can gain some laps along the way, but it won't be enough, and especially if those drivers are still on the racetrack, as Durham just had a slice to the outside wall there, and he's going to be under pressure from Kevin Steele of getting out for position, though, and still watching Cameron Stone. And boy, what a performance. Highside Racing has put on a show within this round of 16. You got to think, if you're anyone else that is not on that team, Andre, are you shaking in your boots a little bit? Are you a little worried that the domination of this team has spread through this entire round and maybe could potentially go into this round of 12?
I don't know if I'm worried or just flat out annoyed, As a competitor, it's really frustrating to see that some of these competitors have found something, like whatever it may be, whether it's in the setups or the way they navigate the track. You can see that they have found something that you didn't, and it's just rewarding them so massively, and it's got to be aggravating to think, okay, what am I doing wrong? How can I catch up to them? But as frustrating as it is, and as nerve-wracking as it can be, it's also a bit of a motivator. When you see, these guys driving away from you, that only makes you want to do better. That makes you want to perform as best you can week to week so that you can catch up, and then pretty soon you can be the guy lapping the whole field a time or two. And that's good motivation. Every sport needs motivation. If you were just lackadaisical and just happy running wherever, you wouldn't be competing. So it's got to be frustrating, but it's also a huge motivator, I'm sure, Ken. Right now, we're looking at the number 27 machine still holding his own. It is going to be the 30 of Randy Drumhiller behind him, William Voiveur ahead of him. So, hey, these two got separated, but once again, like early on, they're back together. We got the 47 and the 27 together again. For how long, I don't know. It seems like the 47 is really on rails. Really winning the I'm Not Cameron Stone class of this race, pulling away from the number 27 machine. And behind them, we got a battle of the lap cars. It's the 17 and the number 30. So Drumhiller again getting passed up by that 17 machine. So I gotta say, we talked about it before, but I gotta reiterate, man, the speed that he is somehow finding in that 17 car, despite how damaged it is. I mean, Christopher Hamann is wheeling that thing. And it's just a shame that because of that damage and because of the way things played out, his results at the end of the night maybe aren't going to show the immense talent that he's put on display tonight.
Yeah, you look at this top 5. Look at Cameron Stone, perfectly clean race car. Go to William Boisvert, also perfectly clean race car. Petrucco has some damage to his race car, but it's not too noticeable. You can only see it more so on the rear side and maybe on the right side of the car where he hit that outside wall. Hixenbaugh has a fair amount of damage. It's a little bit amped up from the comparison to Petrucco. He's got a lot on the rear side. You can see the hood just a little bit perked up from the damage on that wreck that we saw. And then you look to that 17 and the amount of damage. There is no front bumper on that machine, which in turn can help out. It's a lot more clean air to the radiator. It's not necessarily filtering through the front of the bumper. So maybe it could help him out a little more. But I think if you're Christopher Hamann in the 17, a 5th place nonetheless with a car like that and a car that beat up is a win. You can't really stress the amount of effort it takes to have a car as damaged as that, to go through wrecks, to have that feeling of dejection knowing that your car is damaged and you might not be as fast in the moment. In a way, a lot of drivers probably give up in that moment, but Hamann has stayed consistent. He stayed with that never give up attitude, a never say die attitude, and he has pushed himself to a top 5. And especially being a playoff driver, it's going to help him more than it ever will for a different situation. If, let's say, he had given up or stayed down pit road to get all that damage fixed, or just put himself in a deep hole to finish outside the top 15. So we're approaching the last 40 laps of this race. We've reached lap 461, which means 40 laps to go until we get this checkered flag. And Andre, I said earlier when we blinked at the start of this race, it felt like you blinked, and then as soon as you were there, you were at the end of stage 1. You made another blink, you were all the way at the end of stage 2, and maybe you give her about 2 or 3 blinks, and you're all the way to the end of this race. And just how quickly things happen, 40 laps go by in a flash. So it'll be fairly quick, and if we stay green, it'll stay this way all the way, and it'll most likely be Cameron Stone at the head of this field taking the checkered flag in this season. Here's a look at Preston McRae, who's currently sitting right now in 15th, 156 laps down. He was stuck on pit road, Andre, a while back, but at this point, he stayed down there so long, and he's got his damage fixed to the point where he can get back on a racetrack, and right now, really just mustering the best he can.
Yeah, we talked about that never give up attitude, and there it is right there. I mean, it's got to be discouraging running 150 some odd laps down with a beat up car, but again, it's not about being discouraged. It's about those points that you can salvage, and that's definitely what Preston McRae is achieving in that 53 machine. He is salvaging as many points as he possibly can. And going back to what you were talking about, by the way, Preston McRae, winner of our weekly Mama Ain't Raised No Quitter award. He is staying in there 150 some odd laps down. He is right on the track, making it work. But going back to what you said about blinking, you'll miss it. Speaking of blinking, you'll miss it. Cody Bird was in a battle with a 30 machine, and he had the 04 Dave Fugue contact with the 30 car, just as I was talking about, Drumhiller. That 04 went way down to the bottom of the track. Now it looks like he's still loose, so maybe something bent on that car. But very close call, which I was just going to say, that's almost exactly what happened to Cody Bird. We're taking a look at the replay. Just a little tight on exit, but a great save again. That's the second great save that Dave Fugue has made tonight. Yeah, that's the exact same situation that happened to Cody Bird earlier on. So the 30 not catching a break. A couple cars getting tight and sliding on up into him, but regardless, they managed to keep it straight. And I think that's what the leaders and anybody up front is hoping to see, is just keep it green.
Especially if you're Cameron Stone, William Boisvert, you want to stay green as much as you can. Actually, more Cameron Stone more than William Boisvert, because Boisvert has just gotten a lap down. So back to the whole field being a lap down under the hands and under the reign of Cameron Stone. So he continues to do so all race long with just about, I'd say, it's about 23 laps to go until we get to the end of this race. Here's a look at Jack Durham right now, currently sitting 7th. He's side-by-side with Bryson Ixabal. And although we've seen drivers that aren't necessarily fighting for position, we're seeing side-by-side action. We're seeing a little beating and banging. We saw that close call there with the 04 Dave Fugue. We've seen a lot of good racing in terms of side-by-side racing and drivers utilizing the different lines, even if they're not on the same lap, even if they're not fighting for position. It would make it more exciting if they were, but nonetheless, still fighting and still going around each other. And it's kind of feels endless at a track like this, where you're going around the racetrack so many times, you're going with the G-forces, you're really making so many rotations around this track, and you see the same drivers over and over again. You can go down the front straightaway, see a driver right in front of you. You can go back around about 5 laps later and see the same driver right in front of you as soon as you get back to the start-finish line. So it's just all these drivers working around each other all race long, and props to Cameron Stone and really all these drivers for keeping themselves clean within this final run. As there's Cody Bird currently sitting 6th, and he's gained about, I'd say, 11 spots since the drop of the green flag, and I think he's done a great job of keeping himself stable. He's currently 6 laps down. The other driver he needs to get by, though, is Christopher Hamann in the 17, but still a big gap between those two.
It is a gap between them, but if he can get that position, hey, that's more points, and I don't think anybody needs points more than Cody Bird. He was really, really on the bubble. Pretty much in a must-win. If the cards fell absolutely in his favor, he didn't necessarily need to win. He could get away with a top 5 or a top 4. But who knows? We don't have a live look at the points right now, so nothing's been tallied up. We don't know exactly where everybody's sitting, but we do know that for Cody Bird, it's going to be close regardless. So every single point is going to help him out massively. So you know he's pushing that car. He's trying to catch up to that 17 machine. But man, I just don't know if he's going to be able to do it. We've seen so much speed from that 17 in spite of his damage, in spite of everything he's dealt with this race. And, he's wheeling it. So it's going to be a tall order for Cody Bird to catch up to him. But we'll have to see. Who knows? If we get a yellow flag, the field bunches up, then that's his opportunity. But you can't really rely on a yellow flag. We've been green for quite some time. A lot of long green flag runs this race, which I think is something we weren't really expecting. You come to a place like Bristol and you think, hey, we're going to get a lot of cautions. It's going to be chaos. And yeah, we've had our fair share of cautions this week, but mostly we've seen a lot of really long green flag runs. So kind of an interesting race here at Bristol. And right now, the long green flag run's not playing in Cody Bird's favor.
And to think of it at Richmond, where we had a lot more yellows on the table, we had a lot more drivers get into contact, a lot more drivers get hard damage, and it was a result of a lot of the yellows that we saw there. Of course, we've had our fair share of the yellow flags here tonight, but it really hasn't shown. It really has been outweighed by all the green flag laps that we've run throughout this entire race and the long green flag runs that have been commanded by Cameron Stone. It really hasn't shown that much. If you really take a closer look at it, then you can look at the details, find those yellow flags, especially a little bit later in this race after into stage 3. Obviously, we saw the stage break yellows, of course, but apart from that, not many yellows in the fray to really take your attention away and really take your notice. It's always been under the green flag where things have happened, under the green flag where we saw Cameron Stone lapping the entire field, under the green flag where we saw those pit stops happen, and where we saw Cameron Stone fall into the mix, a couple drivers change positions, and so on and so on. So it has more just been everything under the green flag as opposed to anything that's happened when they were pacing around this racetrack. And even then, you take a yellow flag at a track like this and you already get the 1 to green signal just a couple of laps later. You go down pit road, you're already at the 1 to green, and as soon as you know it, you're back green flag racing. So although we've had those yellows, I think it's been just a job of getting them over quickly and then going back to the green flag where most of the action has happened.
Absolutely. The leader, Cameron Stone, just recently worked his way around Bryson Nixonbaugh. That put him 4 laps down now. And now his sight's set on Cody Bird. That would put him 7 laps down should he get around him. But we're pretty much getting to the end of this thing. We're on lap 494 of 500. We got 8 laps to go. And 7 laps to go now. I think right now it's just ride to the end for Cameron Stone. There's no need to push and put anybody any more laps down. It's just keep her clean, keep her safe, get to the end. And that kind of goes for everybody. Our finishing positions are separated by laps at this point. Everything is locked in. So you're going to see a lot of drivers just taking it easy, making it to the end, getting their points. And but yeah, definitely the story right now I think is going to be the point situation for Cody Bird, because we mentioned before, it's going to be close either way. And the fact that he was unable to catch up to the 17, that could put him in a little bit more jeopardy. So definitely going to be interesting to see after the race where everything shakes out points-wise. But right now, as the race comes to a close very shortly, it's still Cameron Stone leading the way.
4 laps to go for Cameron Stone. You see he's just getting around Christopher Hamann in the 17, which you just mentioned, Andre, in a fight with Cody Bird. That's going to put Hamann, I believe, not sure whether that's 7 laps down, so he'll be on equal footing with Cody Bird, and it is. So Cody Bird will have to try and pick up within these next couple of laps to get over to the 17 of Hamann, and that could be a situation developing late in this race. But it has all been Cameron Stone at the front of this field, and 2 laps to go for him to capture his win.
2 laps to go and 2 laps to the bragging rights. We all know that Cameron, he likes to have fun in the group chat after the races, and I'm excited to see what he has to say after this performance because, he's gonna be down to party. Let's just put it that way. So now working his way around the bottom lane, getting past Rich Petrucco again. That's gonna put him, I believe that's 4 laps down, and now working his way through the corner, out of 3 and 4, across the stripe. Cameron Stone wins at Bristol.
Cameron Stone was perfect ever since the drop of the green flag, and he takes the win for Team Highside. Has led every lap but 2 to carry a victory for him and his team on a picture-perfect night for that 57 of Cameron Stone. And what a credit you give to him and how well he's been all night long, and he has been unfazed by every challenge given to him. He will be down the front straightaway. There goes Hamann and Boyvert around. Boyvert will finish second a lap down. Petrucco will be third. Hicksonball will fall to fourth. And then rounding out the top 5 is Hamann. He was able to hold on in front of Cody Bird in the 64 machine. So the 57 will park right in the middle of the logo there for Bristol Motor Speedway. We'll see if he starts to burn down the tires. And there he goes, doing his burnouts at Thunder Valley on a well-deserved win for that 57 machine. Going to take a look at the results and see exactly where everybody finished at the end of this race. And really, it's been Cameron Stone lapping the entire field and doing what Hicksonball did at Darlington. And we'll go over the results and see where everybody finished. Of course, Cameron Stone taking his win tonight. William Boyvert will come home second on a phenomenal effort in his second start. Rich Petrucco will come home third, 4 laps down. Hicksonball will muster to fourth. Christopher Hamann finishes 5th. Cody Bird 6th. Jack Durham finishes 7th. Dave Duke Jr. finishes 8th. Wayne Grassi will come home to finish 9th, 13 laps down, and Randy Drumhiller will fall into this top 10.
Moving back from the top 10, we're going to go ahead and take a look at P11 onward. We got Brian Mabry, P11, Zach Probst, P12, Kevin Steele, P13, Preston McRae, Josh Coppernell, Cameron Caldwell, Alex Princeton, Joseph Lester, John Delaney, and Daniel Fields rounding out the top 20.
And that'll do it for the 20-car field in tonight's event here at Bristol Motor Speedway. We'll take a short break, and as soon as we come back, we'll have more post-race coverage. Race winner Cameron Stone. We'll have all of that coming after this break. We'll be right back. You're watching the Galaxy Cup Series Round of 16 from Bristol Motor Speedway. Welcome back to Thunder Valley in the Bristol Motor Speedway, where we have just finished 500 laps of grueling racing at the short track, and Cameron Stone has lapped the entire field to take the checkered flag tonight. Of course, welcome back. Andre Grambush and Kenneth Bueno with you. We'll step to the first interview in victory lane with Cameron Stone in the 57. First of all, Cameron, welcome to the booth, and congratulations on a win tonight. I know it's been probably the best race that you've ever had, at least tonight, and nothing really went wrong for you at all. First of all, coming off that suspension at Richmond last week, just tell us, what was your motivation going into this race to go into this one with a head of steam and perform the way you did tonight?
Well, yeah, I mean, for lack of a better term, the suspension pissed me off, man. It lit a fire under me, and I just wanted to come out here and, win by as much as possible. We had the best car, knew it coming in, and we just weren't going to be denied this week. I had a few opportunities to let guys stay on the lead lap, but I wasn't letting it happen.
And it was all 100% for you, and possibly 110% for you and your team tonight. And just how does this domination by you and your team into this round of 16, with your teammate winning the last two races, you coming off and checking the checkered flag tonight in the final race of the round of 16, what does that mean for Team Highside going into the round of 12 and so on?
Well, we swept all of round one. Bryson won the last regular season race. So that's 4 in a row for us. So going to Las Vegas, we're trying to check the next one off, and it'd be nice to win the last 11 races of the season as a team. We added Damaris Hickenbottom. At Richmond was his first race with us on Highside, so he finished 4th there, and he was 4th the week before, so he's having strong runs. Cody Bird had a really good run tonight, and haven't seen the official points track, but I believe we got all 4 guys in the round of 12, so the team's running all 8 cylinders right now, man.
Well, before we let you go, Cameron, and you and your success at Team Highside, is there anyone you'd like to thank? Any, of course, teams, of course, sponsors, or really anyone else you'd like to give a shout out to for making this effort and your victory happen tonight?
I want to thank everybody on Highside, Bryson, Cody, Damaris, Tim, Matthew, my spotter. Appreciate those guys supporting me. Appreciate Damaris giving me a little nudge when I need it. Thanks to the guys at Nexus Esport. Those guys made a heck of a setup for us this week, and can't thank Mullins and Winslow enough for making this car tonight. Also want to thank all my friends and family that are watching. Appreciate you guys for all the support, and let's go get them next week.
Well, congratulations on your victory here tonight, Cameron. We thank you for taking the time to talk with us in the booth, and we hope to see you down next week, and we'll see you at the Sin City, and hopefully you and your team can continue your stride and get a little lucky at Las Vegas next week.
Thank you. We're going to try to win the jackpot.
Cameron Stone and his family currently in all smiles right now. Cameron Stone takes the victory tonight at Bristol. Looking back to second, we're going to take William Boiver, who is... I don't believe he's in any of the voice chats right now, so we'll actually just go back to P number 3, the finisher in the 27 machine. Rich Petrucco is trackside with Andre Grambush.
Rich Petrucco, you got a copy, buddy?
I do. How you guys doing?
We're doing great. You put on a great show out there tonight. You had a little bit of adversity, got involved in a few minor incidents, but through it all, you came back for a podium position. How did you do it? How did you fight through all of those issues?
I don't know, man. I'm just absolutely floored that Cam was as fast as he was. My set was, we were pretty good for 25, 30 laps. I was just kind of ride behind him, and then after that, the right rear would just absolutely fly away. I'm looking at the numbers right now, and they're astonishingly bad. Car got so loose on long runs, so I'm happy I didn't put it in the wall more than I did, to be perfectly honest.
It seemed like the long runs were definitely where a lot of drivers were struggling to keep up with the leader there. And we're going to some more short tracks coming up in the playoffs, one of which being Phoenix, which is going to be the final playoff race. So is maybe this knowledge that the long runs are what's going to be key, is that something you're going to take forward and kind of learn from and apply to future races?
Yeah, definitely. We got some work to do. Typically SPR has been really good in long runs. We tend to come in So I don't know, what we're doing different that caused what happened tonight to happen, but it was definitely pretty bad. It's we've never brought anything that fell off that bad before. So yeah, we'll take what we learned tonight and move forward and hopefully make things better for the weeks to come.
All right, well, we're looking forward to it. Before we let you go, anybody you want to thank or shout out?
Yeah, for sure. Vapor Global Aviation's on the car. They help me out a lot. Lang and Wellness, my beautiful other half, she puts up with my crap. And, all of Team Sausage Party Racing, we did a lot of testing this week. And, man, I got to thank those guys a lot. As a team owner, they're a great team to work with.
All right. Well, congratulations on your podium position. We're looking forward to seeing what you can do in the coming weeks. And good luck with the rest of the playoffs.
Awesome. Appreciate it, guys.
All right, that's Rich Petrucco out of the booth. And Kenneth, I'm going to throw it back to you, buddy.
We're going to skip back to fourth, where Bryson Ixabal is finished there in the 63 machine on pit road. And first of all, Bryson, I wouldn't say it was an up and down night for you. I'd say you were able to get all the way back up from where you started in the rear of this field, and you really fought your way all the way back up. But I want to ask you first, in the elephant in the room, what was really the decision behind going down pit road on that restart? We saw you had damage from that wreck, but you went down pit road after. What was the decision behind that?
I had a black flag that was a stop and go that I had to serve. I didn't get to serve it in the that first short run that I got into a wreck in. But I got a black flag for running a closed pit road or that previous caution, and I had to come in and serve it.
Oh, well, that certainly answers it. We were kind of a little bit confused as to what happened down there, but nonetheless, P4 for you tonight in the top 5, and really a different night since you weren't dominating this race. It was your teammate dominating this race, but just tell us how that car was this entire race and how your experience was here at Bristol, knowing that you're not going to go on to a short track until Martinsville in a couple rounds.
Yeah, well, I'd say the car was pretty good. It was better than everybody but Cam, but it was just so far behind Cam that I wasn't really in contention to fight him for the win. I spent a lot of the early part of the race not pushing it, just trying to avoid the wrecks and stay at the back, and it worked early on, and then when I got time for me to push it, I made a couple of mistakes, got in a wreck, and it just downhill from there.
Well, Bryson, it's certainly top 4 finish for you tonight. Before we let you go, do you got anybody you just like to shout out or thank for making tonight's effort possible?
Well, I'd like to shout out my teammate Cody Bird for having his best race of the entire season right when he needed it. He was in a deep hole coming into this race to make it to the next round, and he knew what he needed to do, and he went above and beyond that. He was amazing all race. Almost got a top 5. He was running in the top 10 the entire race. He was, I think, second at one point, pulling away from the field early on. He did amazing.
Well, Bryson, we thank you for taking the time to talk with us, and of course, congratulations on your top 5 run tonight. We hope to see what you can do and your team, of course, with that dominant run in this round to move it into the next couple of rounds in the round of 12 at Las Vegas next week.
Yeah, I hope to see you guys next week. Thanks.
Bryson Ixabal out of the booth. He finishes 4th tonight. Andre, to conclude basically what has been a wild race and probably one of the more unexpected races that we had in mind for a track, especially in the nature of Bristol. What are your final thoughts, especially now that we're going to move on to the 1.5 miles next week at Las Vegas out west?
Thank goodness. Thank goodness we're going back to 1.5 miles. That's my thoughts. I'm looking forward to it. I know a lot of people don't like 1.5 miles, but I love them, man. They're so methodical, the way you got to race them. I'm looking forward to it. Vegas is a rough track, a lot of off-throttle time there. And, it's going to come down to driver and setup and just a lot of factors coming in forward. So definitely looking forward to it.
And of course, if you are looking forward to the next race of the Galaxy Cup Series in the YouTube stream, you can do so next week. We'll be here at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. It'll be the first 1.5 miles of the entire playoff, so that's going to be a very interesting race to cover. Of course, Andre and I will be along for you with the ride. But to close things off on the broadcast, we appreciate and thank each and every one of you in the YouTube stream for sticking around. I know it was a very long race, so we appreciate all the support you all have been giving us throughout this race and, of course, throughout this entire season. Big thanks to SimTV for providing the camera packages and providing the best views of these virtual race cars all night long. congratulations to Cameron Stone, winner at Bristol Motor Speedway, and his win in the season to take into the round of 12. So for everyone in the Galaxy Cup Series, for Kevin Steele, Damaris Hickenbottom, Josh Carpenter, and Brian Mabry, and on behalf of us at 3Y TV, for my partner in the booth, Andre Grambush, and our producer, Carlos Acosta, Kenneth Winnow, saying good night from Bristol. We'll meet you next for more playoff racing from the Sin City.